Chapter 1980. There's a change. Invakil frowned slightly when he heard Nakayama of Scylla's words. What's wrong? Nakayama of Scylla was silent for a moment before a ruthless glint flashed in his eyes. Let's go. After saying that, he disappeared on the spot. Invakil hesitated for a moment before he followed. Yunjia. Yunjia was located in the clouds. Back then, ancestor Yunjia used the clouds to comprehend Tao, so he created Yunjia in the clouds. In the era of Yunmingzi, Yunjia was number one. Back then, Yunmingzi was actually an extraordinary genius as well. He had a chance to reach the inaction state as well. Unfortunately, he hadn't been able to break through the last level. Even so, he was still known as the number one person after Jun Daolin, until Daoling appeared. Back then, Yunmingzi was known as the number one under the inaction realm. On this day, a blood-red light suddenly appeared above Yunjia. Inside Yunjia, Zhongshu looked up at the sky. A man stood in the sky. It was Yixian. Yixian's aura was still growing. Seeing this, Zhongshu's expression became extremely ugly. Will this guy really not suffer from the backlash? At this moment, Yixian suddenly opened his palm, and a blood-red sword slashed down from the sky. Zhongshu's expression changed drastically. Formation. As soon as he said that, the surrounding clouds suddenly gathered to form a huge cloud shield above everyone. The sword slashed down. Boom. The cloud shield shook violently, but it didn't break. Zhongshu and the others immediately heaved a sigh of relief. At this moment, another blood-red sword slashed down. Boom. With a deafening sound, the cloud shield shook violently and then cracked. Seeing this scene, the faces of Zhongshu and the others instantly darkened. In the sky, Yixian swung his sword madly, and the cracks on the cloud shield became bigger and bigger. Zhongshu suddenly roared, killing array. As soon as he finished speaking, beams of light shot into the sky and blasted straight at Yixian. In the sky, Yixian willed and the green profound sword suddenly turned into a sword shield in front of him. Boom 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 boom. The sword and shield trembled violently, but it forcibly blocked all the light pillars. Seeing this scene, Zhongshu's eyes flashed with malevolence. Continue. As soon as he finished speaking, countless powerful forces shot into the sky from below and blasted straight at Yixian. At this moment, Yunjia activated all the formations. In the sky, Yixian stood behind the sword and shield, allowing the powerful forces to strike the green profound sword. The two sides were in a deadlock. Gradually, the faces of Zhongshu and the other experts of Yunjia darkened. Because activating these formations consumed a huge amount of energy, and if this continued, then Yunjia wouldn't be able to hold on at all. Once the formations were gone, then would anyone be able to stop Yixian from charging down? Zhongshu stared fixedly at Yixian who stood in the sky, and he clenched his fists tightly. He was panicking. At this moment he really had started to panic. Because if this continued, then Yunjia would definitely be unable to hold on. Once Yunjia was unable to hold on, then no one would be able to stop Yixian's sword. Meanwhile, Zhongshu spoke abruptly, use all the resources of the sect to maintain the formations. One of the experts by his side stepped back when he heard this. Zhongshu looked up at Yixian and then he said, Yixian, I know you're not mad. I want to talk to you. In the sky, Yixian didn't speak and he just stood behind his sword and shield. Zhongshu continued, Yixian, continuing to fight will only cause both sides to suffer. Moreover, I can tell you that my founding ancestor Yunjia Yunmingzi hasn't perished. If you go too far. At this moment, Yixian suddenly turned around and disappeared into the horizon. He ran? Zhongshu was stunned when he witnessed this scene. This fellow is willing to make peace? It didn't take long for him to deny such a foolish thought. Yixian had just annihilated the enforcement sect, so based on Yixian's character, how could he possibly make peace? Meanwhile, one of the experts of Yunjia spoke in a low voice, Sect leader, should we withdraw the formations or not? Zhongshu's expression suddenly became unsightly when he heard this. He had already figured out Yixian's intentions. Yixian was retreating in order to advance. If Yixian retreated, then they would face a problem. Should they withdraw the formations or not? If they didn't withdraw, the formations would consume a huge amount of energy, and Yunjia wouldn't be able to hold on for long. Because Yunjia had activated all the formations. Once they withdrew, what should they do if Yixian suddenly turned back? Once the formation was gone, who would be able to stop Yixian? To withdraw or not to withdraw? Zhongshu was in a dilemma. The experts of Yunjia understood this as well, and they immediately fell into silence. Zhongshu glanced at the sky and released his divine sense. In the next moment his expression changed. He sensed a vicious and murderous intent. Yi Xian is still here. They couldn't withdraw the formations. If they withdrew the formations, Yi Xian would definitely return and kill them. At that time Yunjie would be finished. Zhong Shou said fiercely, "Everyone, I've received news that the ancestral master will arrive soon. As long as we hold on for a while, Yi Xian will definitely die." At this time one of the experts of Yunjie said in a low voice, "Realm Lord, if the person behind Yi Xian appears..." Zhong Shou turned around and roared, "Why do you have so much nonsense to say?" The expert of Yunjie was dumbfounded. On the other side Yi Xian stood quietly among the clouds. His eyes were slightly closed and the clouds around him had turned blood red. Yi Xian just stood there and no one knew what he was going to do. Xiaota dared not speak. When Yi Xian was normal, it dared to be mischievous. But now Yi Xian was obviously not normal. If it dared to be mischievous, it would definitely be beaten up. However, it firmly believed that Yi Xian was pretending to be crazy. Because when Yi Xian hit it, he used his fists instead of the Qingxian sword. One should know that the Qingxian sword could hurt its core, but Yi Xian did not use it. Obviously Yi Xian was pretending to be crazy. But it dared not say it. It was afraid of being beaten up. A person who was really crazy was not scary. What was scary was a person who was pretending to be crazy. However, it was also a little curious. How could this young master remain conscious after completely activating his bloodline? Could it be that the young master's bloodline was not pure? At this moment Yi Xian suddenly opened his eyes. The moment he opened his eyes, the space-time in front of him turned blood red at a speed visible to the naked eye. In the blink of an eye, the space-time in front of him turned into a sea of blood. Yi Xian turned around and with this turn the entire sky turned into a sea of blood. Not long after, Yi Xian appeared in the sky above Yunjie again. Seeing Yi Xian again, Zhong Shou and the others' faces instantly turned ugly. Damn it! This idiot is here again. Just as Zhong Shou was about to speak, Yi Xian suddenly turned into a sword light and slashed at him. Zhong Shou's eyelid twitched and he quickly said, "Defend." As soon as he said that, countless light pillars shot up from within Yunjie. This time Yi Xian did not defend but rushed forward. Yi Xian slashed down with his sword. One of the light pillars was directly split into two, but in the next moment, countless light pillars directly drowned him. Boom! Yi Xian was blasted thousands of meters away. Seeing this, Zhong Shou and the others instantly heaved sighs of relief. At this moment, Yi Xian suddenly disappeared on the spot. A blood-red sword light shot down from the sky. Boom! A light pillar was directly slashed into pieces, but countless light pillars continued to rush up from within Yunjie. Therefore, after Yi Xian slashed a light pillar, he would be drowned by countless light pillars in the next moment. But this time Yi Xian actually did not retreat and continued to slash madly. Gradually, the faces of Zhong Shou and the others became more and more unsightly. Because they noticed that Yi Xian was advancing. Although it was very slow, he was advancing bit by bit. Zhong Shou stared at Yi Xian. His hands were clenched tightly, and his hands were trembling. At this time, an expert of Yunjie who was beside him said miserably, "Realm Lord, what should we do?" If this continued, sooner or later Yi Xian would break the formation and rush into Yunjie. After a moment of silence, Zhong Shou said, "All of you leave. Leave." When they heard this, the experts of the cloud world were stunned. Zhong Shou said softly, "Let's go." An expert of Yunjie said in a low voice, "Then Realm Lord you..." Zhong Shou chuckled. "His target has always been me." Everyone was silent. Zhong Shou said again, "Hurry up and leave." In the field, the experts of Yunjie looked at each other, no one moved. Zhong Shou looked at everyone, "If you can survive, rebuild Yunjie in the future. Dying here now is meaningless, understand?" Everyone looked at each other again, they were still hesitant. At this time Yi Xian was about to enter Yunjie. Seeing this, no one hesitated anymore, they turned around and left. Zhong Shou looked up at Yi Xian in the sky, he slowly clenched his right hand, and a powerful force gathered in his palm. At this moment, as a beam of blood-red light erupted, the beam of light in the sky was completely shattered by Yi Xian. The whole sky was a mess. Most importantly, Yi Xian controlled his force very well. He did not destroy the space-time of this universe, so he did not attract Jun Daolin's law. In the sky, Yi Xian slowly walked down with the blood sword in his hand. Below, Zhong Shou laughed, "Yi Xian, come." As soon as he said this, he suddenly leaped up into the sky with a powerful force. In the sky, Yi Xian suddenly stopped, and then he took a step forward, and with each step he took, he slashed with his sword. In the sky, Zhong Shou's body froze in the air, and Yi Xian had appeared behind him. Yi Xian opened his palm and continued walking down. Behind him, Zhong Shou's eyes were dull. He had not expected Yi Xian's strength to grow to such an extent in such a short period of time. He was led into a trap by Xiao Xiao. The color in Zhong Shou's eyes gradually disappeared, and at this time he seemed to see something, and his eyes suddenly opened wide and he became excited. Below, Yi Xian opened his palm, and the green profound sword returned to his hand. He turned to look at the sky, and in the distant sky, a middle-aged man was slowly walking over. This person was none other than Yun Mingzi. This time it was not a clone, nor was it a strand of soul, but his real body. His real body had arrived. At this time Zhong Shou suddenly laughed. Yi Xian. Yi Xian. Your death is here. Ah. At this time, a sword suddenly pierced through the back of his head and then into his mouth. His voice stopped abruptly. Chapter 1981. Yi Xian walked over to Zhong Shou, turned around and drew his sword. The green profound sword was pulled out of Zhong Shou's mouth, and a stream of blood sprayed out. At the same time, Zhong Shou's soul was devoured by the green profound sword. Yun Mingzi walked slowly towards Yi Xian. Yun Mingzi. His main body. Meanwhile, Nakayama of Scylla and Invicil had solemn expressions on their faces. They hadn't expected Yun Mingzi's main body to come here. This fellow had reached the half-step inaction realm countless years ago. Moreover, he was known as the #1 expert below the inaction realm. Now that so many years had passed, even if he hadn't reached the inaction realm, it was impossible that he hadn't improved. They were in big trouble. Invicil spoke solemnly. Nakayama of Scylla, what should we do now? Nakayama of Scylla fell silent for a moment, and then he said, it's beyond our ability. Invicil fell silent. Indeed, with Yun Mingzi's appearance, it wasn't something that he and Nakayama of Scylla could interfere with. Moreover, if Yi Xian died, then they might die as well. Would Yun Mingzi let them go? He definitely wouldn't. Meanwhile, Qin Shi suddenly walked towards Yun Mingzi with a blood-red sword in his hand. A mocking smile curled up the corners of Yun Mingzi's mouth. What? You want to kill me? Yi Xian suddenly vanished on the spot. Yun Mingzi pressed his fingers together. Bang! Yi Xian's green profound sword was clamped, and Yun Mingzi was about to exert force when Yi Xian suddenly let go of the green profound sword. In an instant, a wave of blood-red sword light enveloped him and Yun Mingzi. Bang! The sword light tore through the air. But in the next moment, an extremely terrifying and powerful force suddenly erupted from the battlefield. Rumble. Yi Xian retreated over 1 kilometer away with his sword. Yun Mingzi, who stood before Yi Xian, was completely unharmed. Seeing this, Nakayama of Scylla and Invicil's faces immediately darkened. Right at this moment, Yun Mingzi suddenly smiled and said, Come, let me see if you can really ignore space and time. As soon as he finished speaking, he took a step forward and gently waved his right hand at Yi Xian. Kacha. In an instant, the space and time that Yi Xian was in began to crack like glass. What a strange space-time power. Yi Xian just stood there without moving, letting the space-time he was in crack layer by layer. Not long after, Yi Xian was already in a mysterious space-time black hole, and this space-time black hole was still annihilating bit by bit, but Yi Xian was completely fine. The smile on Dreamcloud's face gradually vanished when he witnessed this scene, and it was replaced by a gloomy expression. At this moment he was a little shocked. The guy in front of him was actually able to ignore the power of time and space that he had used. Was this guy really just in the Heartless Realm? A question flashed through Dreamcloud's mind. Right at this moment, Yi Xian took a step forward and he'd left the space-time abyss. In the next moment, a blood-red ray of light appeared between Dreamcloud's brows. However, it was stopped by a shield of clouds. So, the green profound sword returned to Yi Xian's grasp. Dreamcloud gazed at Yi Xian and then he flicked his sleeve. In an instant, the clouds in the surroundings suddenly seethed. In the next moment, all the clouds actually converged together and transformed into a cloud dragon that was over 3 kilometers long. The cloud dragon roared as it soared through the sky, and then it instantly dove down towards Yi Xian. Bang! In an instant, the entire heavens and the earth seethed. Yi Xian raised his head to look at the enormous dragon, and then he slowly closed his eyes. In an instant, countless wisps of blood energy in the surroundings suddenly converged towards him, and in next to no time, an enormous blood-red dragon that was over 10 kilometers long appeared above him. The enormous blood-red dragon raised its head and roared furiously before it shot into the sky. Twin dragons collided head-on. Rumble. An explosion that sounded like a thunderclap resounded in the sky, and then the two enormous dragons exploded apart. The heavens and the earth dimmed down while countless strands of space were obliterated. Nakayama of Scylla's expression changed drastically when he witnessed this scene. Loss. Invicil's expression was extremely solemn as well. The battle between Yi Xian and Dreamcloud's son had destroyed this expanse of space, and this meant that the laws left behind by Jun Daolin were about to appear. As expected, as the space in the surroundings was obliterated, a terrifying pressure suddenly appeared above them, and then two bolts of blood-red divine lightning appeared above them. The energy of the laws. Dreamcloud's son glanced at the two bolts of divine lightning and chuckled. If you were here in person, then I would be 70% afraid of you. But if it's only the energy of the laws. Meanwhile, one of the bolts of divine lightning shot directly towards him. Dreamcloud's son opened his palm, and then he gently guided it upwards. In an instant, countless clouds converged in front of him. Bah! When the blood-colored divine lightning entered the clouds, the entire cloud layer began to seethe. But in the next moment, the cloud layer actually imprisoned the lightning. Nakayama of Scylla spoke in a low voice when he witnessed this scene, as expected of the person who was closest to the ancestor. As he spoke, a trace of worry flashed through his eyes as he gazed at Yi Xian who was in the distance. Dreamcloud's strength was absolutely not something that Zhong Shou, Xiao Xiao, and the others could compare to. If the person behind Yi Xian didn't show up, then they would absolutely be unable to stop him. But now, the person behind Yi Xian had no intention of showing up. Actually, he was slightly annoyed. Damn it, is there no one behind this fellow? In the distance, Yi Xian was locked onto by a bolt of divine lightning as well. When the other bolt of divine lightning attacked Dreamcloud's son, it shot towards Yi Xian as well. As for Yi Xian, he didn't go head-on against it, and he directly entered the mysterious abyss of space and time. As soon as he entered that mysterious expanse of space and time, the bolt of divine lightning was stunned. I can't find him? Dreamcloud's son frowned slightly when he saw the bolt of divine lightning stop on the spot. It seems like it can't sense Yi Xian. Right at this moment, the bolt of divine lightning suddenly turned around and shot towards Dreamcloud's son. Since it couldn't sense Yi Xian, then it had to find a target, right? Otherwise it would have come here for nothing. Moreover, Dreamcloud's son just happened to have violated the laws, so he was the perfect target. Dreamcloud's son's face instantly turned gloomy when he saw the bolt of divine lightning shooting towards him. He came looking for me because he couldn't sense Yi Xian? It didn't cause much harm, but it was extremely insulting. Elmar's expression was terrifyingly gloomy. When the bolt of divine lightning arrived in front of him, he suddenly took a step forward, and then he suddenly smashed his fist forward. An expanse of light surged out from his fist like an erupting volcano. Rumble. The bolt of divine lightning blasted his fist onto the spot it was standing on. Right at this moment, Dreamcloud's son's pupils constricted because a sword had arrived at the center of his forehead. Dreamcloud's son didn't dare act carelessly, and he swiftly raised his left arm to block it. Bah! An expanse of blood-red light erupted, and Dreamcloud's son was pushed over 100 m back. As soon as he stopped moving, his entire body fell into a mysterious spatial abyss. Dreamcloud's son glanced at the surroundings and he frowned slightly. This spatial abyss. He hadn't even finished speaking when a ray of light suddenly stabbed towards him. A wisp of viciousness flashed through Dreamcloud's son's eyes, and then he suddenly clenched his right fist and smashed it forward. Bah! The mysterious spatial abyss started seething, and his punch had forcefully stopped Yi Xian's sword. Yi Xian's sword had missed, so he immediately retreated. However, the green profound sword in his hand suddenly flew out while he was retreating. Within the spatial abyss, Dreamcloud's son's eyes narrowed slightly as he raised his right arm to block. Bah! The green profound sword was directly blocked flying. Meanwhile, Dreamcloud's son suddenly spoke fiercely. You actually used a spatial abyss to trap me? How laughable. Watch me shatter your spatial abyss. As soon as he finished speaking, he suddenly smashed his fist forward. Rumble. The spatial abyss started seething, but it didn't shatter. Dreamcloud's son frowned slightly when he witnessed this scene, and then he smashed his fist forward once more. Bang! The entire mysterious expanse of space trembled violently. However, it still didn't shatter. Dreamcloud's son's expression was slightly unsightly. He was unwilling to give up, and he smashed his fist a few more times. For a time, the entire mysterious expanse of space shook violently like an earthquake. However, no matter how Dreamcloud's son attacked it, it showed no signs of shattering. A short moment later, Dreamcloud's son came to an understanding. He was utterly unable to shatter this mysterious expanse of space. When he thought up to here, Dreamcloud's son gazed at Yi Xian in the distance. Yi Xian, do you still have any trump cards? Yi Xian lightly waved the green profound sword in his hand, and he didn't speak. At this moment his aura was still rising explosively. Even though he was only at the unheart realm, his aura wasn't inferior to Dreamcloud's son at all. It was the boost from the energy of his bloodline. Most importantly, Yi Xian hadn't suffered any backlash. Dreamcloud's son gazed at Yi Xian, and then his body suddenly became illusory. In an instant, countless afterimages suddenly appeared in the heavens and the earth, and these afterimages were like a storm that shot violently towards Yi Xian in the distance. In the distance, Yi Xian didn't choose to continue attacking. He raised the green profound sword in his right hand, and in the blink of an eye, the green profound sword transformed into a sword shield that blocked in front of him. Rumble. In an instant, numerous explosions resounded incessantly in the heavens and the earth. As these explosions resounded, Yi Xian retreated repeatedly, and he retreated for over 100 kilometers. Moreover, when the afterimages vanished, Yi Xian was still there. However, it wasn't easy for him this time, and a wisp of blood slowly seeped out from the corner of his mouth. In the distance, Dreamcloud's son's expression gradually became solemn. He hadn't imagined that Yi Xian would actually be able to resist this attack of his. Dreamcloud's son didn't give it any further thought, and he suddenly rose slowly into the air. In the air, he opened his right palm, and then the space above him split apart. In an instant, a blood-red bolt of lightning shot out from within, and it descended into his palm. As soon as it appeared, the heavens and the earth and the surroundings instantly became illusory. This place couldn't endure the might of the blood-red bolt of lightning at all. In the shadows, Nakayama of Scylla and Dreamcloud's expressions had become extremely solemn, and they exchanged glances while their eyes were filled with astonishment. In the distance, Yi Xian had stopped as well. He held the green profound sword tightly in his right hand, and he seemed to have sensed danger. Meanwhile, Dreamcloud's son suddenly spoke fiercely, "Yi Xian, let me see exactly how strong your sword is." As soon as he finished speaking, he suddenly tossed it forward. The blood-red bolt of lightning shot down violently from the sky. Bang! In an instant, the space in an area of a few million kilometers started burning. Chapter 1982. Along with the appearance of the blood-red divine lightning, Nakayama of Scylla and Invicil, who were hiding in the shadows, retreated explosively. Danger. That was what they felt at this moment. Merely the pressure it emanated caused them to feel the aura of death. In the distance, Yi Xian raised his head slowly. He opened his palm, and the green profound sword in his hand suddenly trembled violently before transforming into a sword shield that blocked in front of him. He blocked it head-on. In next to no time, the blood-red divine lightning blasted onto the sword shield. Bang! A deafening explosion suddenly resounded. Rumble. Yi Xian instantly retreated over 300 kilometers away. The sword shield was fine, but Yi Xian's entire body had actually split open, and a copious amount of blood surged out. Moreover, the blood-red divine lightning actually didn't vanish. Moreover, it had transformed into a human face. The blood-red face suddenly laughed gloomily, "That's a good sword. Dreamcloud, you have to give it to me." Dreamcloud spoke indifferently, "If you're able to kill him, then this sword is yours." The blood-red face roared with laughter, "Remember what you said." As soon as it finished speaking, it suddenly vanished on the spot. Bang! Everywhere the divine lightning passed, space was instantly incinerated and obliterated. The terrifying energy contained within it wasn't something space could endure. In the distance, Yi Xian wiped off the blood on the corners of his mouth, and he held the green profound sword tightly in his right hand. In the next moment he charged forward and stabbed with his sword. It was a head-on collision. The green profound sword stabbed directly onto the divine lightning. At the same time, an expanse of sword light enveloped the divine lightning. Bang! Another explosion resounded like a clap of thunder. In the blink of an eye. Rumble. An expanse of sword light was obliterated. Yi Xian retreated explosively over 30 kilometers away, and he just stopped when the face suddenly appeared in front of him. Yi Xian suddenly drew his sword and slashed. The blood-red sword light slashed down and tore everything apart. Bang! The sword light shattered, and Yi Xian retreated explosively for over 10 kilometers again. The faces of Nakayama of Scylla and Invicil instantly sank when they witnessed this scene. What exactly is the origin of this divine lightning? It was actually so terrifying. In the distance, the blood-colored face did not follow up with another attack. He stopped and smiled. "This sword formation is interesting. It can actually withstand my special power." Cloud Dream Z suddenly smiled and said, "Nether Realm. This person is not simple. He might have an inactive realm expert behind him. Yu Jing smiled and said, an inactive realm expert? Forget about this place. Even in the alternate world there were not many inaction realm elites. There are currently only 9 peerless realm elites in the other world, but I know all of them, so. As he spoke, he looked at Yi Xian. The person behind him is definitely not an inaction realm elite. Even if he is, I'm afraid he's only at the false boundless realm. Pseudo-limitless stage. Hearing this, Yun Mingzi became silent. The truth was that the pseudo-novelist level was infinitely close to the nothingness level. His half-step nothingness level was actually a bit overstated. Limitless realm. Since ancient times, only a handful of people had been able to reach this level. Meanwhile, Nether Realm smiled and said, so what if he has an inactive realm expert behind him? Isn't my master an inaction realm elite as well? Cloud Dream Z glanced at Nether Realm and smiled. Of course. As he spoke, he glanced at Yi Xian in the distance. Do you need help? Nether Realm looked at Yi Xian in the distance and laughed. No need. Just wait and see. Isn't this person a swordsman? Let me defeat him with my sword. As he spoke, he suddenly turned into a sword. The next moment he turned into a blood-colored sword light and shot out. In an instant the space in his path shattered and was annihilated. Sword. In the distance Yi Xian suddenly looked up. His right hand held the azure profound sword tightly and was about to attack. However, when the sword arrived in front of him, he suddenly put away the azure profound sword. Seeing this, Cloud Dream Z's expression changed. He wanted to stop Nether Realm, but it was too late. Nether Realm sank into the center of Yi Xian's forehead. Boom. Yi Xian's figure trembled violently while an extremely terrifying aura swept out from within him. Nakayama of Scylla and Invicil were stunned when they witnessed this scene. Is he dead? But it didn't take long for them to notice that Yi Xian wasn't dead. Moreover, Yi Xian's aura was rising madly. Both of them exchanged glances, and their eyes were filled with shock. Cloud Dream Z stared fixedly at Yi Xian in the distance, and his eyes were filled with disbelief. Meanwhile, a furious howl suddenly resounded from within Qin Shi's body. How audacious! How dare you devour me? Devour? Everyone was stunned when they heard Yu Jing. Yi Xian is devouring Yu Jing? Meanwhile, Yu Jing's voice resounded once more. Cloud Dream Z, hurry up and save me. Cloud Dream Z pondered deeply for a moment, and then he vanished on the spot. Yi Xian suddenly raised his head and slashed down with his sword. Bang! An expanse of blood-red light erupted, and then Cloud Dream Z was blasted over 1 kilometer away. Nakayama of Scylla's face fell when he witnessed this scene. Cloud Dream Z is intentionally refusing to save Yu Jing. Invicil nodded. Obviously Cloud Dream Z wants Yi Xian to devour Yu Jing. But what's his objective in doing this? Nakayama of Scylla laughed coldly. Isn't it simple? He wants to form enmity between Yi Xian and the power behind Yu Xian. Or perhaps he wants to use the power behind Yu Xian to deal with Yi Xian. Invicil spoke in a low voice. So, he sensed danger from Yi Xian? Nakayama of Scylla laughed bitterly. So long as he isn't blind, then he should be aware that there's definitely an inactive realm expert behind Yi Xian. If this fellow doesn't have such an expert backing him, then how could he possibly be so heaven-defying? Whether it's his bloodline or that sword, they aren't things that an ordinary person should possess. Invicil nodded, and then he glanced at Cloud Dream Z. This fellow is very sinister. Nakayama of Scylla spoke indifferently. How could someone who has come this far be an idiot? In the distance Yi Xian's aura rose explosively. Within him Yu Xian roared madly, lowly creature, how dare you devour me? Do you know who I am? Yi Xian didn't even care about Yu Jing, and he continued devouring. Yu Xian roared madly. At this moment Xiao Ta's voice suddenly resounded from within Yi Xian's body. Stop shouting. You're stupid, yet you insist on becoming a sword. Who can you blame? Yu Xian said angrily. Who are you? Xiao Ta spoke indifferently. I am Destiny's Tower. The #1 tower in the universe. Under 3 swords I'm invincible. Above 3 swords I can change. At this point it didn't continue. Yu Xian said angrily, what stupid tower? Hurry up and make him stop. If I die here my master won't let him go. Xiao Ta said indifferently, what? Do you want to fight for a backer? Yu Xian said fiercely, I don't want to talk nonsense with you. If you don't stop him when my master comes down you'll all die. Shut up. Xiao Ta suddenly said angrily, it's not easy for the young master to stop relying on his father and sister. You bastard, you want to use a backer again. Yu Xian suddenly roared, lowly creature, stop. The voice slowly weakened. Outside, Cloud Dream Z looked at Yi Xian, but he didn't do anything. He just looked at Yi Xian and no one knew what he was thinking. In the distance, Yi Xian was still roaring, but at this moment his voice was getting weaker. On the contrary, Yi Xian's aura was getting stronger. Combined with his original bloodline aura, his aura was no weaker than Cloud Dream Z's. Gradually, Yi Xian's voice became as soft as a mosquito. Before long, his voice disappeared completely. Boom. An extremely terrifying aura suddenly erupted from Yi Xian's body. As this aura erupted, the surrounding space-time boiled. In the distance, Cloud Dream Z narrowed his eyes and clenched his right hand slowly, but he didn't make a move. At this moment, Yi Xian suddenly opened his eyes. The moment he opened his eyes, his realm went from the heartless realm to the thoughtless realm. However, it wasn't over yet. His aura was still growing. Before long, he went from the thoughtless realm to the corporeal realm. He went up 2 realms in a row. At this moment, Cloud Dream Z slowly retreated. Upon seeing this scene, Nakayama of Scylla frowned slightly. Did this guy want to escape? Suddenly, Cloud Dream Z disappeared from his spot. As soon as Cloud Dream Z disappeared, the spacetime above Yi Xian's head trembled slightly. At this moment, the entire Tao critical spacetime was boiling. It was the entire Tao critical spacetime. For a time, countless experts from the Tao world turned to look in Yunjie's direction, and their eyes were filled with terror. Is an inaction realm expert about to appear? In the darkness, Nakayama of Scylla looked up at the sky above Yi Xian, and his expression was extremely unsightly. This aura isn't at the half-step inaction realm at all. An inaction realm expert. It didn't take long for a phantom to appear in the sky. As soon as it appeared, the entire Tao critical spacetime started boiling, and then it started to fade. When he saw this, Nakayama of Scylla's expression changed drastically. Is he going to destroy the entire Tao critical spacetime? Right at this moment, a blood-red cloud suddenly appeared in the distant sky, and then a bolt of blood-red lightning condensed from within the cloud in the next moment. The laws left behind by Jun Daolin had appeared once more. Meanwhile, the phantom in the sky gradually condensed, and it didn't take long for a middle-aged man to appear in the sky. The middle-aged man wore a white robe and held a horsetail whisk in his right hand. He seemed very sage-like. It wasn't his main body. But even then, his aura was at least a few dozen times stronger than Cloud Dream Z. It really was like the difference between the heavens and the earth. As soon as the middle-aged man appeared, the bolt of blood-red lightning suddenly vanished on the spot. The middle-aged man remained expressionless as he waved the horsetail whisk in his hand. Bang! An explosion resounded, and then the bolt of blood-red lightning was instantly obliterated. At the same time, it vanished as well. The middle-aged man gazed at Yi Xian with a completely expressionless face. You devoured the nether realm. Yi Xian didn't speak and he just held his sword tightly. The middle-aged man didn't speak as well. He just waved the horsetail whisk in his hand, and then Yi Xian wasn't even able to react before he was blasted over 3 kilometers away. Moreover, the middle-aged man had appeared in front of him before he could even stop himself. At this moment, Yi Xian's body was actually gone. The middle-aged man was about to attack when Xiao Ta suddenly appeared in front of Yi Xian. You're too much of a bully. You hit the young and the old came. How can you bully others like this? The middle-aged man looked at Xiao Ta. We're bullying you. You're not happy? Xiao Ta laughed. I wanted to keep a low profile, but now it seems that I can no longer keep a low profile. The middle-aged man nodded slightly. Come. Xiao Ta said disdainfully, you're not worthy for me to attack. I want to call for help. The middle-aged man, Xiao Ta suddenly trembled. After a moment he suddenly said, Master, I'm calling for you. Hurry up and come out. After a moment there was no movement at all. Xiao Ta hesitated for a moment and then said, Master, I'm calling for you. There was still no movement at all. Xiao Ta couldn't help but curse. Motherf asterisk cur, are you not giving me any face? Everyone. P.S. Will you forgive me? Chapter 1983. Xiao Ta was in a slightly awkward situation. This master is actually ignoring me. How can I get out of this situation now? As if he'd thought of something, Xiao Ta turned around and glanced at Yi Xian, and he was slightly helpless. Young master, are you really his biological son? Yi Xian was speechless. Meanwhile, the middle-aged man before Xiao Ta spoke abruptly, I'm waiting for you to call for help. Xiao Ta flared up with rage when he heard this and he gazed at the middle-aged man and spoke furiously, My young master has a sword. Do you dare to touch it? As he spoke, Yi Xian cooperated and opened his palm, and the green profound sword floated slowly towards the middle-aged man. He would carry the burden when he should, and he would absolutely not carry the burden when he shouldn't. The middle-aged man gazed silently at the green profound sword. Xiao Ta laughed coldly. What? You don't dare? This sword was forged by the #1 expert in the entire universe, Big Sister Tianming. Do you dare to touch it? The middle-aged man gazed at Xiao Ta, and a wisp of disdain arose on the corners of his mouth. The #1 expert in the entire universe? How laughable. As he spoke, he suddenly grabbed the green profound sword with his right hand. Bang! A strand of terrifying and formidable force suddenly erupted from the green profound sword, but it was instantly suppressed by the middle-aged man in the next moment. The middle-aged man's face was emotionless. Let me see who you are. As soon as he finished speaking, he slowly closed his eyes. At the same time, the green profound sword started to tremble slightly. Xiao Ta instantly heaved a sigh of relief when he witnessed this scene. I, Xiao Ta, like confident people like you. Yi Xian stood silently at the side. Xiao Ta couldn't help but turn around to glance at Yi Xian. He hesitated for a moment before he said, Young master, have you gone mad? Yi Xian was speechless. Meanwhile, the middle-aged man suddenly raised his head and gazed into the depths of the boundless starry sky. A short moment later, his pupils constricted. A sword had suddenly stabbed into the middle-aged man's forehead. Bang! In an instant, the middle-aged man's body had become ethereal. The middle-aged man's eyes were filled with disbelief. However, this was not the end. In an unknown world far away, on a mountain peak that towered into the clouds, a sword appeared without any prior signs. As the sword appeared, a middle-aged man who sat cross-legged on the mountain peak suddenly raised his head, and a hint of hostility flashed in his eyes. How dare you? As soon as he finished speaking, he opened his palm, and a golden mark suddenly floated up slowly from his palm. At the instant that the golden mark floated up, countless strange golden talismans suddenly appeared in the surroundings, and they suddenly released countless beams of golden light that converged into the golden mark. In the next moment, the golden mark shot into the sky and blasted towards the sword. The sword fell straight down. When the sword pierced the golden mark disappeared without a trace. Seeing this, the middle-aged man's pupils constricted. How? Before he could finish his sentence, the sword pierced through his head. Boom! The middle-aged man's body immediately became illusory. The sword suddenly turned into a ray of sword light and disappeared into the boundless horizon. The middle-aged man looked at the horizon in the distance, and his eyes were filled with confusion. Killing the clone, shattering the main body. As soon as he finished speaking, his body disappeared without a trace. Dead. As the middle-aged man disappeared, everyone in the other world was dumbfounded. An inanimate realm expert had died? He died just like that? Whose sword did that belong to? All the experts in the other world were dumbfounded. Before long, an old man appeared where the middle-aged man had died. He looked in front of him with an extremely solemn expression. At this moment, a woman in a red dress suddenly appeared not far away from the old man, and her expression was extremely solemn as well. Both of them were inanimate realm experts. The old man suddenly said softly, "Who is it?" His voice carried a trace of confusion. The woman in the red dress fell silent. Haha. At this moment, loud laughter suddenly sounded from afar. The two of them turned around and saw a middle-aged man in a white robe walking over slowly from afar. The old man narrowed his eyes slightly. "Jun Daolin, what are you laughing at?" Jun Daolin laughed loudly. "We've been searching for a breakthrough our entire lives, but the 9 of us have cultivated for tens of millions of years, and none of us has been able to reach a higher level. Today we can see an expert above inanimate realm in action. Shouldn't we be happy?" The old man and the woman in the red dress fell silent. Happy. Just as Jun Daolin had said, the 9 of them had been stuck in the Anika realm for a few tens of millions of years, and they hadn't been able to take another step forward. There were many times when they even wondered if the Anika realm was the end of the martial Tao. But now that sword told them that inanimate realm was not the end. The old man and the woman in the red dress suddenly laughed. Hope. At this moment, hope suddenly rose in their hearts. Inanimate realm was not the end of martial arts, which meant that they had a goal and motivation to strive for. The woman in the red dress suddenly looked at Jun Daolin. "Jun Daolin, do you know who did that?" Jun Daolin laughed. "I don't know." The woman in the red dress glanced at Jun Daolin and did not ask anything else. But her instincts told her that Jun Daolin knew. Meanwhile, another woman walked over from afar. Was Dao Ling. Dao Ling smiled. I never expected that Chi Di would actually perish just like that. Chi Di was the middle-aged man who'd been killed earlier. The woman in the red dress gazed at Dao Ling. Dao Ling, do you know who did it? Dao Ling blinked. I don't. The woman in the red dress frowned slightly, and then she glanced at Dao Ling and Jun Daolin. Both of you definitely know. Jun Daolin smiled. Hong Lian, don't worry about who it was. Actually, you should be asking why that person killed Chi Di. Hong Lian was about to speak when the old man spoke abruptly. No matter what the reason is, old man, choose to keep a low profile after today. Farewell. As soon as he finished speaking, he turned around and left. Jun Daolin glanced at the old man and smiled. That old geezer Emoku is really interesting. As expected of someone who's lived the longest. Emoku might not be the strongest amongst the 9 of them, but he was definitely the one who'd lived the longest. Hong Lian glanced at Dao Ling and Jun Daolin, and then she turned around and left. Only Dao Ling and Jun Daolin remained here. Dao Ling spoke softly. I never expected her to be so strong. Jun Daolin smiled. You know her? Dao Ling nodded. My clone that I left at Dao border has seen her. At that time my clone was instantly killed as well. Jun Daolin's smile gradually disappeared. The Scarlet Earth doppelganger went to Daobi to kill that young man called Yi Xian. As he spoke he looked at Dao Ling. It was the person behind Yi Xian who killed him. Dao Ling nodded. Jun Daolin fell silent. Actually, the reason they didn't hide it from each other was because they were in an alliance. It wasn't possible to fight one-on-one here. It was very difficult to kill a person in a one-on-one battle, but it was different if it was 2-on-1. Thus, basically everyone would form an alliance here and have a teammate. The 2 of them came from the same place, so it was logical for them to form an alliance. At this moment, Jun Daolin shook his head and sighed. That Chi Di died in such a sullen way. He didn't even see the other person. Dao Ling smiled and said, that little guy might come here soon. Jun Daolin looked at Dao Ling. Are you familiar with him? Dao Ling's lips curled up slightly. He recognized me as his sister. Jun Daolin's expression froze, and after a moment he gave a thumbs up. Awesome. Dao Ling laughed out loud. Dao border. As the middle-aged man disappeared completely, Xiao Ta heaved a sigh of relief. Sister Tianming is still the most reliable. As if thinking of something, Xiao Ta suddenly turned around and looked at Yi Xian. The middle-aged man's soul wasn't erased, but absorbed by the Qingxian sword. To be precise, it was the middle-aged man's soul that was absorbed by the Qingxian sword that was controlled by Yi Xian. At this moment, Xiao Ta was completely sure that Yi Xian was awake. Of course he didn't dare to ask, nor did he dare to expose him. This young master wasn't a kind person. If he was naughty now, he might be beaten up by him pretending to be crazy. And for nothing. In the dark, Nakayama of Scylla and Invicil were extremely excited. They made their move. The big boss behind Yi Xian finally made his move. And the other party directly erased the clone of the inanimate realm expert. He was undoubtedly an inanimate realm expert. Invicil suddenly said with a trembling voice, we won the bet. Nakayama of Scylla laughed. Of course. As if thinking of something, he frowned slightly. Be careful of one person. Hearing this, Invicil also frowned. Yunmingzi. Ever since the inanimate realm expert appeared, this guy completely disappeared. At this moment, Nakayama of Scylla said, now he probably won't dare to show himself and target young Master Yi. But he might play dirty in the dark. At this point he seemed to have thought of something and shook his head with a smile. With young Master Ye's wit, he probably won't be afraid of him playing dirty. Invicil smiled faintly. That's true. In the distance, the green profound sword in front of Yi Xian suddenly trembled violently. The next moment, an extremely terrifying aura erupted from the green profound sword. As the aura appeared, the time and space around the green profound sword began to boil. Before long, the boiling time and space began to disappear bit by bit. When they saw this, Nakayama of Scylla and Invicil's expressions became extremely solemn. The sword was about to break through. The sword had already devoured the souls of too many experts, and just now, it devoured the clone of an inanimate realm expert. Now it was finally about to break through. Not far away from the green profound sword, Yi Xian stood quietly. The power of his bloodline was still boiling, but he did not go around killing people. Regarding this, Small Pagoda was extremely curious. After the young master activated his bloodline, he was completely different from his master. At this moment, Yi Xian suddenly looked up. He opened his palm, and the green profound sword appeared in his hand. Boom! The green profound sword and Yi Xian erupted with a terrifying aura at the same time. They broke through together. Chapter 1984. He'd broken through. Yi Xian had attained the soulless realm. Moreover, his aura was rising explosively. Moreover, the aura of the green profound sword was rising explosively as well. It didn't take long for Yi Xian to attain the Taoist realm from the soulless realm. Once he attained the Taoist realm, he'd started to suppress himself. Of course, it was impossible for him to attain the Taoist realm from the Taoist realm. After a long time, Yi Xian's aura gradually calmed down. At this moment he opened his eyes slowly. The moment he opened his eyes, the space and time in front of him turned into a sea of blood. Nakayama of Scylla and Invicil exchanged glances when they witnessed this scene, and there was a trace of shock in their eyes. Nakayama of Scylla spoke softly, "This fellow has risen to the Taoist realm from a single battle. Coupled with his invincible bloodline and sword, he'll definitely be the #1 expert beneath the Taoist realm from now on." The #1 expert beneath the Taoist realm. Yi Xian hadn't attained the Taoist realm, but he'd already been able to go head-on against an extraordinary expert like Yun Mingzi. Now that he'd attained the Taoist realm, who else could be a match for him besides Taoist realm experts? Suddenly, the blood-red color in Yi Xian's eyes gradually vanished, and it didn't take long for the blood-red space around him to return to normal as well. Yi Xian opened his palm, and the green profound sword appeared in his hand. The corners of his mouth curled up slightly as he gazed at the sword in his hand. Xiao Ta suddenly said, "Young master, you've returned to normal?" Yi Xian smiled, "Yes." Xiao Ta hesitated for a moment before he said, "Young master, why were you able to maintain your consciousness after activating your bloodline?" Yi Xian fell silent. Actually, he didn't know the answer as well. After he fully activated his bloodline, he hadn't completely lost all reason as he usually would. He'd entered an extremely profound state, and he was slightly unable to control himself while in that state. However, his mind felt very clear. It was like he'd drunk alcohol. He was clearly drunk. However, his mind was still clear. He didn't know why he was like that. Could it be that his bloodline was mutating? Thinking of this, Yi Xian shook his head and stopped thinking about this question. In any case, this was a good thing. When he met his father in the future, he could ask him about it. At this time, Nakayama of Scylla and Invicil appeared in front of Yi Xian. Nakayama of Scylla looked at Yi Xian and said with a smile, "Congratulations, little friend." Yi Xian smiled and said, "I, Yi Xian, will never forget the two seniors' kindness of helping me." Nakayama of Scylla hesitated, then said, "This?" Yi Xian smiled and asked, "What's wrong?" Nakayama of Scylla chuckled. "It's like this, my young friend. Our goal in life is to reach the boundless realm, but unfortunately our talent is limited. I'm afraid it's impossible for us to reach the boundless realm on our own. So." He knew very well that unforgettable memories were all fake. Especially this slippery guy, he might forget about it the moment he turned around. He had to get the benefits first. Hearing Nakayama of Scylla's words, Yi Xian was speechless. This guy wanted Dao Ling's inheritance. He didn't refuse. With a point of his finger, two rays of white light directly entered Nakayama of Scylla and Invicil's forehead. Boom. Boom. Nakayama of Scylla and Invicil's bodies trembled slightly. After a moment, Nakayama of Scylla opened his eyes. He looked at Yi Xian and bowed slightly. "Thank you, little friend. Dao Ling's inheritance." Yi Xian smiled and said, "Whether you can reach the boundless realm or not depends on yourselves." Nakayama of Scylla smiled and said, "Understood." Although they had Dao Ling's inheritance, as Yi Xian said, whether they could reach the boundless realm or not depended on themselves. It didn't mean that they would definitely be able to reach the boundless realm after obtaining the inheritance. Yi Xian smiled and said, "Seniors, I still have some things to take care of. Another day. I'll visit again." Nakayama of Scylla smiled and said, "Little friend, please wait." Saying so, he took out a storage ring and handed it to Yi Xian. Yi Xian was a little surprised. "This is?" Nakayama of Scylla smiled and said, "Young Master Yi, this is some divine vein crystals that we plundered from Yunjie and the law enforcement sect. It should be helpful to young Master Yi." Yi Xian glanced at the mustard seed ring and took it right away. Then he said with a smile, "Seniors, goodbye." Saying so, he turned into a sword light and disappeared into the distant horizon. After Yi Xian left, Invicil said softly, "Yunjie is gone. The law enforcement sect is also gone." Saying so, the corners of his mouth curled up slightly. Nakayama of Scylla laughed. "Now, the entire Daolin nation belongs to you and me." Saying so, he looked at Invicil. "Invicil, what do you plan to do next?" Invicil thought for a moment and then said, "I'll listen to you." Nakayama of Scylla. After Yi Xian left, he directly used the green profound sword to travel back to Azure State. In the palace, Tuoba Yin suddenly looked up. When she saw Yi Xian, the corners of her mouth curled up slightly. Yi Xian walked to Tuoba Yin and said with a smile, "I was delayed by some things." Tuoba Yin shook her head slightly. "It's good that you're back." Saying so, she slowly hugged Yi Xian's waist and buried her head in Yi Xian's chest. Without saying a word, she gently hugged Yi Xian. In fact, how could she not be worried during this period of time? Yi Xian gently stroked Tuoba Yan's long hair and said softly, "How have you been recently?" Tuoba Yan suddenly looked up at Yi Xian. "Oh no." Yi Xian was stunned. Tuoba Yan said in a deep voice, "A mysterious force has appeared in Azure State. This force has been searching for young women like crazy. Now the entire Azure State is in a state of panic." Yi Xian frowned slightly. "Mysterious force?" Tuoba Yan nodded. "This force is called Heaven Sect. They appeared half a month ago. As for their origins, I've sent people to investigate, but they couldn't find anything." Yi Xian was about to speak when he suddenly turned to look outside the hall. In the distant sky above the hall, an aura suddenly appeared. The next moment, an old man in Taoist robes slowly descended. Tuoba Yin said in a deep voice, "They're here." Outside the hall, countless soldiers swarmed over. Tuoba Yin suddenly waved his right hand, and the soldiers immediately retreated. At this moment, the old man in Taoist robes walked into the hall. He looked at Tuoba Yin and smiled. Country King Tuoba is indeed a smart man. Tuoba Yin smiled. "From Heaven Sect?" The old man in Taoist robes smiled. "Old man, Heaven Sect's Grand Elder, Shaoqi Country King Tuoba, I won't waste any more time. I've come for one thing, and that is my Heaven Sect's sect master wants to take you as a concubine." "Take a concubine?" Yi Xian was stunned. The next moment he looked at the old man in Taoist robes, and the corners of his mouth curled up slightly. Not only was Tuoba Yin not angered by the Taoist-robed old man's words, he even smiled. She glanced at Yi Xian and then at the old man in Taoist robes. "Take me as a concubine?" The old man in Taoist robes nodded. "Yes." Tuoba Yin blinked. "Do you know whose woman I am?" The old man in Taoist robes frowned slightly. "You have a man?" Tuoba Yin nodded and pointed at Yi Xian. "He's my man." The old man in Taoist robes glanced at Yi Xian and said with a smile, "Isn't that simple? He's dead. You don't have one, do you?" As he spoke, he flicked his sleeves and sent a blast of energy towards Yi Xian. When the blast of energy arrived in front of Yi Xian, it disappeared without a trace. The old man in Taoist robes frowned slightly when he saw that. "Young master, you do have some skill." Yi Xian was speechless. The old man in Taoist robes sneered. He suddenly threw a punch and a fist print tore through the air towards Yi Xian. However, when the fist print arrived before Yi Xian, it vanished without a trace. The old man in Taoist robes narrowed his eyes. "How did you do that?" Yi Xian spread his hands. "I didn't do anything." The old man in Taoist robes' expression gradually turned cold. "Are you going to pretend in front of me?" Yi Xian was speechless. The old man in Taoist robes suddenly roared furiously. The next moment, his right hand grabbed at Yi Xian from afar. This grab caused the space where Yi Xian was to start tearing. Space tearing, not space-time tearing. The space around Yi Xian was torn apart, but he was completely fine. A trace of disbelief flashed across the old man's eyes. "How did you do that?" Yi Xian was somewhat innocent. "I didn't do anything." The old man in Taoist robes stared at Yi Xian. "Are you at the primordial realm?" "Primordial realm?" Yi Xian was stunned. "What's the primordial realm?" The old man in Taoist robes said in a deep voice, "You don't even know the primordial realm of the five-dimensional universe." "The five-dimensional universe? Sister Nian's universe?" Yi Xian was somewhat speechless. "Damn it. There are too many realms. I actually can't even remember them. I wonder which idiot did this. How embarrassing." Meanwhile, the old man in Taoist robes suddenly spoke in a deep voice. "Who are you?" Yi Xian looked at the old man in Taoist robes. He hesitated for a moment before he said, "Yi Xian, have you heard of me?" The old man in Taoist robes frowned slightly. "Yi Xian?" Yi Xian nodded. The old man in Taoist robes pondered deeply for a moment before he said, "I've never heard of you." Yi Xian flared up with rage. "Damn it. You're from the five-dimensional universe, yet you've actually never heard of me, Yi Xian?" Meanwhile, the old man suddenly vanished on the spot. In the next moment, an afterimage flashed by. Yi Xian looked in front of him and a powerful force shot towards his face. Yi Xian blocked it with his arm. Bang! Along with a muffled explosion, the old man was blasted out of the hall. As soon as he stopped moving, his body shattered into pieces. Moreover, even his soul had become almost translucent. Yi Xian was quite speechless when he witnessed this scene. He really hadn't exerted any strength in that instant, and he'd merely blocked it for a moment. However, he hadn't expected that the old man would actually be weak to such an extent that his body had shattered with just a light touch. Tuoba Yin glanced at Yi Xian, and he was extremely shocked. She knew that Yi Xian was very strong, but she didn't know exactly how strong Yi Xian was. At this moment, a casual action from Yi Xian had actually almost destroyed the old man's soul. The old man in Taoist robes outside the hall was completely stunned. What's wrong with me? Where's my body? A short while later he finally returned to his senses. He gazed at Yi Xian and spoke resentfully, "Just you wait." As he spoke, he opened his palm, and then a cloud arrow suddenly shot into the sky and shot into the clouds. "Call for help." Yi Xian blinked and then laughed. "Come, call as you wish. I'm invincible, so do as you wish. Xiao Ta." P.S. Recently both adults and children have caught a cold, and children have caught a cold. They can't sleep and they keep throwing a tantrum, causing both of us to be unable to sleep. Most importantly, both of us have caught a cold as well. So, sorry for the late update yesterday. Because I only slept at 4 or 5 yesterday. Sorry again. Chapter 1985. I'm invincible, so do whatever you want. Tuoba Yin was slightly stunned by Yi Xian's words, and then she grinned. There was adoration and a trace of adoration in her eyes as she gazed at Yi Xian. This little man of the past had become unfathomable. The black-robed old man was first stunned when he heard Yi Xian, and then he roared with laughter. His laughter rumbled through the sky. Yi Xian gazed at the black-robed old man and smiled silently. Meanwhile, the black-robed old man suddenly pointed a finger at Yi Xian. "You're invincible? You actually dare to say such absurd words. This old man has never seen such a thick skin on your face." Yi Xian was speechless. Meanwhile, a few dozen figures suddenly appeared in the horizon. The black-robed old man was overjoyed when he saw the figures. "They're here." As soon as he finished speaking, a few dozen figures had appeared within the palace, and they were led by a middle-aged man. The middle-aged man had his hands behind his back, and there was a dignified air between his brows. The black-robed old man hurriedly said, "Sect Master." "The sect master of the heavenly sect, Mu Long." Mu Long glanced at the black-robed old man, and his eyes instantly narrowed when he noticed that only his soul remained. He gazed at Yi Xian. "You did this?" Yi Xian smiled, "Yes." Mu Long gazed at Yi Xian. "Do you know that he's a member of my heavenly sect?" Yi Xian smiled, "I do." Mu Long clenched his right fist, and then he suddenly charged forward and slammed his fist at Yi Xian. Space was torn apart. He who attacked first had the advantage. When Mu Long's fist arrived over 10 inches away from Yi Xian, an invisible force suddenly obstructed him. Mu Long was stunned and then he was horrified. He was about to retreat, but a powerful force pushed him over 1 kilometer back. Moreover, his body had been obliterated when he stopped moving. The experts of the heavenly sect were stunned by this scene. His body is gone. Their invincible sect master's physical body was gone? At this moment, the black-robed old man seemed to have lost his soul. His soul retreated rapidly as if he'd seen a ghost. Tuoba Yin held Yi Xian's hand lightly and said softly, "You've actually become so formidable." Yi Xian blinked. "Not only am I powerful in the day, but I'm even more powerful at night." Tuoba Yin was slightly taken aback. In the next moment she came back to her senses and rolled her eyes at Yi Xian. Her cheeks blushed and she looked extremely beautiful. Yi Xian laughed and wrapped his left arm around Tuoba Yan's waist. In the distance, the curtain suddenly said with a trembling voice, "Why, you're a legendary primordial realm expert?" Yi Xian smiled and said, "No." Mu Lang glared at Yi Xian. A moment later, he roared, "Invite the ancestor." As soon as he finished speaking, he opened his palm, and a token suddenly flew out from his hand. In the next moment, the token shot into the clouds. Boom! The clouds in the sky began to boil. Yi Xian rubbed his nose, somewhat speechless. At this moment, Tuoba Yin said softly, "They're summoning the ancestor." Seeing the worry in Tuoba Yan's eyes, Yi Xian smiled and said, "Don't be afraid. Your man is invincible in this place." Tuoba Yin blinked. "What about other places?" Yi Xian laughed. "I'm invincible in other places too. In any case, bragging was not against the law. So what if he bragged a little?" At this moment, an old man suddenly appeared in the clouds. Seeing this old man, Mu Lang hurriedly bowed deeply. Greetings, Ancestral Master. Ancestral Master. Behind Mu Lang, the heavenly sect experts all knelt and bowed. After the old man appeared, he looked around expressionlessly. What a weak world. With that, he looked down at Mu Lang. What's the matter? Mu Lang pointed at Yi Xian in the distance. Ancestral Master, this person wants to destroy my heavenly sect. The old man looked at Yi Xian. When he saw Yi Xian, he frowned slightly. Why does he look so familiar? Familiar? Yi Xian smiled. I once stayed in the five-dimensional universe. Five-dimensional universe. The old man frowned. As he looked at Yi Xian, he felt that Yi Xian looked more and more familiar. At this moment, Mu Lang hurriedly said, Ancestral Master, this person not only wants to destroy my heavenly sect, but also looks down on you. Ancestral Master, please kill this person. The old man ignored Mu Lang. He looked at Yi Xian again. What's your surname? Yi Xian smiled. Yi, the old man frowned slightly. After pondering for a moment, his pupils suddenly shrank. He said in a trembling voice, Your Excellency is Yi Xian, young Master Yi? Yi Xian laughed. You know me? Hearing Yi Xian's words, the old man's body trembled. Then, in front of everyone's eyes, his legs softened and he directly knelt down. The experts of the heavenly sect were stunned. What's going on? The old man's face was deathly pale. His eyes were filled with fear. Young Master Yi. I didn't know it was young Master Yi. I offended young Master Yi, please forgive me. After saying that, he continuously kowtowed. Seeing this scene, the experts of the heavenly sect were petrified. Young Master Yi? Who is this young Master Yi? Why have we never heard of him? Yi Xian looked at the kneeling old man and smiled. You know me? The old man nodded and said in a trembling voice, Young Master Yi once protected the entire five-dimensional universe. Who doesn't know him? In the five-dimensional universe there were two guardian gods. One was the five-dimensional Tendo Moon Yin Yin, and the other was Yi Xian, young Master Yi. At this moment the old man's fear reached its peak. At this time Yi Xian suddenly said, Why don't I know you? The old man smiled bitterly. It's normal that young Master Yi doesn't know me. I'm just a nobody. I've never seen young Master Yi in person, only his statue. After saying that, he hurriedly kowtowed. Young Master Yi, my disciples don't know young Master Yi. They offended young Master Yi. Please forgive them. Yi Xian laughed. Forgive them? I thought you were a smart person. But it seems I was wrong. If they offended me, I'm a good-tempered person and won't bother with them. But they offended my woman and you want me to let them go? Interesting. Hearing this, the old man's expression changed. He hurriedly said, Young Master Yi, I'll kill them now. After saying that, he suddenly turned around and slapped out with his palm. Boom. Before Mu Lang and the others could react, they were directly erased. After killing Mu Lang and the others, the old man said, Young Master Yi, from this moment on, I will disband the heavenly sect. Yi Xian suddenly waved his hand. Boom. The old man was directly erased. Mercy? He wouldn't be merciful. From another perspective, if he didn't have the strength, then what would have happened to Tuoba Yen today? Being merciful to one's enemy was extremely stupid. Meanwhile, a few people suddenly rushed over from afar. Yi Xian was slightly stunned when he saw these people. He knew all of them. It was Mo Yunqi and the others. Jiang Jiu was here as well. Jiang Jiu was still dressed in battle armor, and he seemed valiant and formidable. Mo Yunqi was the first to rush over when he saw Yi Xian. He roared with laughter and said, Bandit Yi, I thought you died outside. As he spoke, he hugged Yi Xian tightly. Yi Xian smiled and said, My life is tough. Mo Yunqi roared with laughter. I know your life is tough and ordinary people can't kill you at all. Yi Xian said seriously, Nonsense. Someone who can kill me hasn't even been born yet. Mo Yunqi's expression froze. In the next moment he shook his head. Your skin has thickened again. Yi Xian roared with laughter. In the next period of time, everyone gathered together. Mo Yunqi and Bai Zhe were drunk, but Yi Xian wasn't. He arrived outside the hall, and Tuoba Yen was sitting before the stone steps. Yi Xian walked over to Tuoba Yan's side, and Tuoba Yen asked softly, You're leaving? Yi Xian nodded. Tuoba Yen didn't speak. Yi Xian opened his palm, and a wisp of sword chi entered Tuoba Yan's body. This sword chi will remain in your body. As long as the opponent's strength doesn't surpass mine, you can use this sword chi to instantly kill them. This sword chi won't disappear. Tuoba Yen nodded slightly. Alright. Yi Xian opened his palm, and a spatial ring appeared before Tuoba Yen. There are some divine supreme crystals and some cultivation techniques in this spatial ring. Cultivate according to them and your strength will increase greatly. Tuoba Yen smiled. Anything else? Yi Xian shook his head. No. Tuoba Yen put away the spatial ring. She said softly, let's go. Yi Xian hesitated for a moment and then said, I'll be going then. Tuoba Yen wanted to say something but hesitated. At this moment Yi Xian vanished. Tuoba Yen was slightly taken aback when she saw Yi Xian vanish. She looked at the distant horizon, and her gaze gradually became infatuated. After an unknown period of time, Tuoba Yen retracted her gaze, and her expression dimmed. At this moment, a sword chi suddenly landed in front of Tuoba Yen. In the next moment, the sword chi dispersed, and Yi Xian appeared before Tuoba Yen. Tuoba Yen was stunned. The corners of Yi Xian's mouth curled up slightly. I'm not leaving tonight. Tuoba Yen suddenly hugged Yi Xian and said in a trembling voice, kiss me. Yi Xian, that night it was an ecstasy. The next day, early in the morning, a sword chi shot into the sky from the imperial palace. In the blink of an eye, the sword chi disappeared into the horizon. In a certain hall, Tuoba Yen suddenly opened her eyes on the bed. She turned to look, and when she saw that Yi Xian had disappeared, she fell silent for a moment and then smiled. A moment later Tuoba Yen got up, but as soon as her feet touched the ground, her legs went limp and she almost fell. In a large hall, Mo Yunqi sat up. He shook his head and the alcohol immediately disappeared. He turned to the side and saw Bai Zhe lying like a dead pig nearby. Mo Yunqi shook his head. He was about to call out to Bai Zhe when Bai Zhe suddenly opened his eyes and sat up. He looked into the distance. Gone? Mo Yunqi nodded. Yes. Bai Zhe nodded slightly. Then let's go. With that he got up and left. But soon he opened his palm and there was a spatial ring in his palm. He was stunned when he saw this spatial ring. Mo Yunqi also opened his palm, and there was also a spatial ring in his palm. Obviously they were left behind by Yi Xian. Mo Yunqi and Bai Zhe exchanged glances, and Mo Yunqi shook his head with a smile. This guy. Chapter 1986. After leaving the Qingzhou province, Yi Xian arrived at the fifth dimension. At this time, the fifth dimension was very prosperous. Not only that, the fifth dimension was in a unified state. Fifth Dimension Alliance. This was a force established by Yi Xian. Now, although Yi Xian was not here, this force had become the #1 force in the fifth dimension. And the main people in charge of this fifth dimension alliance were Guanyin, Yi Jiming, High Priest A Mu, and the others who had followed Yi Xian in the past. Fifth Dimension Hall. In front of the hall there were two statues. One of them was of the fifth dimension Tendo Mu Nianyan and the other was of Yi Xian. If not for Mu Nianyan and Yi Xian, the entire fifth dimension would have disappeared. Yi Xian was not only the leader of the fifth dimension alliance, but also the protector of the fifth dimension. Fifth Dimension City. The current fifth dimension city could be said to be the largest and most prosperous city in the fifth dimension. After Yi Xian left, under the leadership of Mu Guanyin and the others, the fifth dimension city expanded by more than 10 times. Inside the city, there were forces from all over the fifth dimension. On this day, a man walked into the fifth dimension city. This man was Yi Xian. He did not directly go to find Guanyin and the others. He wanted to see the current fifth dimension first. He naturally did not forget about the fifth dimension. In the past, he had promised Sister Nian that as long as Yi Xian was here, he would always protect the fifth dimension. After entering the fifth dimension city, a feeling of vastness spontaneously arose. Compared to before, the current fifth dimension city was much bigger. Just the width of the street was more than 300 zhang. The street was bustling with people coming and going. It was very lively. On both sides of the street there were many shops. Inside the shops, the shop assistants were shouting with all their might. On the road Yi Xian smiled. Here he could feel the life of the human world. In a place like the Dao boundary realm, there was no such feeling. That was because the people there all pursued the great Dao and longevity. In that kind of place there was only cultivation, plundering and being plundered. In the five-dimensional universe, the majority of people only pursued survival. Actually, this was pretty good. Yi Xian collected his thoughts and continued forward. After a while Yi Xian felt a little bored. He had been waiting for someone to recognize him, but no one recognized him along the way. There was a statue of him outside the city. Why didn't these people recognize him? Moreover, the security in this city couldn't be better. Along the way he didn't even meet a single bad guy. Damn it. If there were no bad guys, how could he act cool? A hero saving a damsel in distress would be good too. After walking for a while, there was still no one who recognized him, nor were there any bullies taking liberties with innocent girls. Yi Xian felt a little bored. Just as he was about to look for Guan Yin and Yi Jiming, a sudden noise came from afar. Yi Xian's eyes lit up and he hurriedly walked over. Yi Xian came to the front of a shop. This shop was very big, it could be said to be the biggest shop in the vicinity. It could accommodate hundreds of people. At this moment, there were already people gathered around the shop. There were some antiques displayed in the shop. At this moment, a young man was facing a woman. The young man wore a luxurious robe and held a folding fan in his hand. One look and it was obvious that he was not an ordinary person. The woman opposite him wore a simple white dress. She had delicate features and a trace of arrogance on her face. The young man's face was a little gloomy. Wu Ling, I saw this item first. Wu Ling said calmly, you think it's yours? You saw it first but I paid first. The young man's face became gloomy. Wu Ling, don't think that just because you're from the Wu clan, you can pester endlessly. Wu Ling, said calmly, Guanjing, others might be afraid of your Spirit of Yin clan, but my Wu clan isn't. At the side, the shop owner was in a difficult position. These two people were not people he could offend. At this moment, Guanjing suddenly said, Wu Ling, I'm telling you this item is mine. Wu Linger's lips curled into a disdainful smile. With just you? Do you think that just because you're from Lady Guan Yin's clan, my Wu clan will be afraid of you? Guanjing said calmly, isn't the reason you're so arrogant because you're from the Wu clan's high priest's clan? Hearing the two people's words, Yi Xian frowned. Although the fifth dimension was very prosperous and peaceful, there were still many problems in the dark. After all, the fifth dimension alliance didn't just have the human race, there were many other races. These races were all in the fifth dimension alliance, so there would definitely be conflicts of all sizes. At this moment, Wu Ling looked at the shop owner. Who are you selling it to? Guanjing looked at the shop owner as well. The shop owner instantly smiled bitterly. He couldn't afford to offend these two people. At this moment, Yi Xian suddenly walked out. He glanced at Guanjing and Wu Ling before looking at the shop owner. Who saw this item first? The shop owner hesitated for a moment before saying, both of you saw it. Yi Xian smiled. There's always a first-come, first-served rule, right? The shop owner glanced at Yi Xian before sighing in a low voice. Young master, don't get involved in this matter. Yi Xian was about to speak when Wu Ling suddenly looked at Yi Xian. Who are you? Yi Xian looked at Wu Ling and smiled. From your conversation just now, I found out that the person who saw this item first was this young master Guanjing, right? Wu Ling stared at Yi Xian. He saw it first but I paid first. Yi Xian looked at the item that the two people were fighting over. It was a black piece of metal. He picked it up and sized it up. In his eyes it was trash, but in a place like the fifth dimension it was still pretty good. Yi Xian thought for a moment before opening his palms. Two swords appeared in his hands. With a thought, the two swords floated in front of Guanjing and Wu Ling. The two of you don't need to fight over this piece of metal. I'll give you a sword. The quality of this sword is definitely above this piece of metal. What do you think? The shop owner looked deeply at Yi Xian. Soon he frowned. Why did this person look so familiar? Guanjing glanced at the sword before him, hesitated for a moment and then said, Brother, I don't want this sword and I don't want that piece of metal as well. Obviously he'd noticed how extraordinary Yi Xian was. Yi Xian grinned. It's fine. I'll give it to you. Just keep it. Guanjing hesitated for a moment before he said, Thank you. As he spoke he put his sword away. Yi Xian gazed at Wu Linger. Wu Linger gazed at Yi Xian and laughed coldly. Why should I give you face? Who do you think you are? Yi Xian frowned when he heard this. Meanwhile Wu Ling flicked Yi Xian's sword away. Moreover, she even swept the piece of metal away. She walked over to stand before Yi Xian and looked Yi Xian in the eyes. Why are you frowning? Are you displeased? Yi Xian smiled and said, I finally noticed. You're looking for trouble on purpose. Wu Ling smiled and said, I'm looking for trouble on purpose. What? Do you want to hit me? Yi Xian suddenly raised his hand and slapped her. Slap. Everyone hadn't even recovered from their shock when Wu Ling was slapped to the street. Everyone was stunned. Wu Ling is a member of the Wu clan. Why does the Wu clan need anyone? The high priest of the Wu clan, Mu, is the managing elder of the Fifth Dimension Alliance, and his authority is monstrous. Guanjing glanced at Yi Xian with a trace of curiosity and vigilance in his eyes. Meanwhile, the owner said with a trembling voice, Young master, she's from the Wu clan. Yi Xian said indifferently, What about the Wu clan? The owner smiled bitterly. Young master, do you know the high priest of the Wu clan, Amu? Yi Xian said with a smile. Of course I do. The owner hesitated for a moment before saying, then do you know that the high priest is an elder of our fifth dimension alliance, and his authority is monstrous? You. After saying this he paused and said, most importantly the protector of our fifth dimension alliance Master Yi, is the high priest shaman attendant. Yi Xian was speechless. At this moment Wu Ling-er suddenly said with resentment, you dare to hit me. Yi Xian looked at Wu Ling-er and was about to say something when the sound of hooves came from the distance. In the next instant the crowd on both sides of the street dispersed, and soon more than 50 cavalrymen wearing black armor rushed over. Seeing this, the owner next to Yi Xian said with a trembling voice, young master, these are the Wu clan cavalrymen. Wu clan cavalrymen. At this moment the group of cavalrymen rushed to the front of the shop, and the leader was a young man. When he saw the red and swollen handprint on Wu Linger's face, his expression immediately became sinister. Who did this? His voice was like the roar of a wild beast. Wu Ling-er stood up and pointed at Yi Xian saying resentfully, elder brother, it was this human, this lowly human. Lowly human? Yi Xian frowned slightly. The Wu clan young man looked at Yi Xian. You did this? Yi Xian nodded slightly. Yes. Killing intent flashed in the eyes of the Wu clan young man. Who gave you the guts? As soon as he finished speaking, he suddenly dashed forward and threw a punch at Yi Xian. However, this punch missed. This was because Yi Xian had already retreated several meters away. Seeing this, Guanjing's eyes flashed with shock. This Wu clan young man's strength was at the origin realm. After his punch missed, the Wu clan young man was slightly stunned. He looked at Yi Xian and narrowed his eyes. Who are you? Yi Xian was about to speak when the Wu clan young man suddenly said fiercely, no matter who you are, if you dare to touch a member of my Wu clan will annihilate your entire family. As soon as he finished speaking, he dashed forward again and threw a punch at Yi Xian. This punch was even faster than before and it was even more powerful. However, just as he punched, a hand directly slapped his face. With the crisp sound of a slap, the young man was sent flying. Everyone was dumbfounded. Yi Xian looked at the Wu clan young man. Just as he was about to speak, the young man suddenly roared, kill! Kill him! After saying this, the Wu clan cavalryman beside him directly charged at Yi Xian. Seeing this, Yi Xian's eyes gradually became cold. Chapter 1987. When the cavalrymen were about to arrive in front of Yi Xian, a strange scene appeared abruptly. The cavalrymen seemed as if they'd been frozen on the spot. At the same time, every single one of their arms flew into the air. In an instant, countless strands of blood sprayed out, and it was an extremely bloody scene. Everyone in the surroundings was astounded when they witnessed this scene. Guanjing gazed at Yi Xian with disbelief, and his figure was trembling. At this moment, the owner of the shop was astounded to the extreme as well, and cold sweat ceaselessly flowed down his face. On the other hand, Wu Ling-er was petrified on the spot. Yi Xian gazed at the young man from the Wu clan who was similarly astounded. You want to annihilate my entire clan? The young man from the Wu clan stared fixedly at Yi Xian. Who exactly are you? Yi Xian smiled and said, do you know why I haven't killed you? The young man from the Wu clan suddenly opened his palm, and then a shaman command token suddenly shot into the sky. He was calling for help. Yi Xian shook his head and smiled when he witnessed this scene. Do you really not recognize me? The young man from the Wu clan stared at Yi Xian, and then he frowned after a short moment. Why does he feel slightly familiar? Right at this moment, the horizon in the distance suddenly trembled violently. In the next moment, an old man strode through the air towards them. An expert from the Wu clan. The young man from the Wu clan was instantly overjoyed when he saw the old man, and he hurriedly said, Grand Elder. The Grand Elder of the Wu clan. After the Grand Elder of the Wu clan arrived here, his expression instantly turned gloomy when he saw the severed arms of those cavalrymen from the Wu clan. He gazed at Yi Xian, and he instantly seemed as if he'd been struck by lightning when he saw Yi Xian, and his mind went blank. The young man from the Wu clan was just about to speak when the Wu clan's Grand Elder suddenly turned around and slapped him. Slap. The spectators watched as the young man from the Wu clan's body was directly blasted into pieces. Everyone was stunned. What was going on? Guanjing looked at Yi Xian, and as he watched, he seemed to have thought of something. His pupils constricted, and his body started to tremble violently. Soon he took out a voice transmission talisman and crushed it. It wasn't just Guanjing. The shop owner had also noticed something. He crushed a sound-transmitting talisman to inform the owner behind him. Some of the spectators in the surroundings who were originally watching the show immediately withdrew their transmission talismans and crushed them. Not long after, the entire fifth dimension city flared up. Countless powerful auras soared into the sky from all directions, then rushed towards a certain direction. Fifth dimensional hall. Guanyin suddenly put down the scroll in her hand. In the next moment, her pupils constricted abruptly. Then she crushed the scroll in her hand, stood up and walked out of the hall. Everyone in the hall was dumbfounded. But very quickly, everyone seemed to have received some sort of message. They immediately put down all the official duties in their hands and rushed out of the hall. That man was back. The Wu clan. Amu, who was dealing with official duties, suddenly stopped. In the next moment she raised her head, and in the blink of an eye, she had already disappeared from the hall. Not long after, countless experts of the Wu clan soared into the sky, heading straight towards a certain direction. On the other side, in a certain courtyard, Yi Jiming put down the ancient book in her hand. After a moment of silence, she faintly smiled. He's back. On the street, the young man whose body was crushed by the great elder of the Wu clan was stunned. He looked at the great elder of the Wu clan, his eyes filled with disbelief. Great elder, the great elder of the Wu clan suddenly roared, "Shut up! Kneel! Kneel?" The young man of the Wu clan was stunned, then said, "Why?" The great elder of the Wu clan flew into a rage. "If you don't kneel, this old man will beat you to death." The young man of the Wu clan trembled. At this moment, Wu Linger hurriedly walked in front of the young man of the Wu clan. She forced the young man to kneel and she also knelt down. Not only did she kneel, but she also buried her head in the ground, her whole body trembling. She was extremely afraid. Obviously, she had already discovered Yi Xian's identity. At this moment, the experts of the Wu clan who had lost an arm also knelt down. Not only them but the people around them also knelt down. The guardian of the 5 dimensions. The great elder of the Wu clan walked in front of Yi Xian. He was about to kneel down but a force held him back. Yi Xian smiled, "Great elder, I trust you have been well since we last met." The great elder of the Wu clan smiled bitterly, "Lord Shaman's attendant, I never thought that we would meet in this way. I am ashamed." Shaman's attendant. Hearing the words of the great elder of the Wu clan, the young man of the Wu clan understood at this moment. He looked at Yi Xian and his whole person was stunned. Shaman's attendant. This was the shaman's attendant of the high priest, and also the shaman's attendant of the entire Wu clan. The entire reason why the entire Wu clan had its current glory was all because of this man. The strongest shaman's attendant in the history of the Wu clan. The shaman's attendant whose status was even higher than that of the patriarch of the Wu clan and the high priest. Yi Xian said softly, "I am a little disappointed." Disappointed? Hearing this, the great elder of the Wu clan's heart trembled. He wanted to kneel down again but Yi Xian did not let him. Yi Xian smiled, "These problems are not just the problems of the Wu clan. We will slowly change them later." The great elder of the Wu clan hurriedly said, "All right." At this time, a woman suddenly appeared in front of Yi Xian. This person was Guanyin. Seeing Yi Xian, Guanyin glared at him, "You still know to come back." Yi Xian had left for far too long. Yi Xian smiled, "The 5-dimensional universe has changed a lot." As he said this, he glanced at the powerful figures of the 5-dimensional union standing behind Guanyin. "You have all done very well." Hearing this, these people hurriedly gave a slight bow. Many of them had never seen Yi Xian before, because some of them had only recently entered the 5-dimensional union. Even so, there was no one who did not respect Yi Xian. At this time, the high priest of the Wu clan appeared with the experts of the Wu clan. As they saw Yi Xian, the experts of the Wu clan promptly knelt down one after another. "Greetings, shaman's attendant." Shaman's attendant. Yi Xian looked at Amu and faintly smiled, "My high priest." High priest. Amu walked in front of Yi Xian and faintly smiled, "You've returned?" Yi Xian nodded. Amu looked at the experts of the Wu clan who had lost their arms. After a moment of silence she said, "I will give you an explanation." Before coming she had already known the ins and outs of the matter. Yi Xian looked at the experts of the Wu clan and smiled, "The 5-dimensional universe is better than before, but there are still some problems. However, these problems shouldn't be too big, right?" Amu smiled, "Of course." Yi Xian laughed, "Let's change places." He discovered that there were already many people gathered in this place. It was truly a sea of people. Guanyin suddenly smiled, aren't you going to greet everyone? Yixin laughed and floated in the air. When he was in the air, he discovered that everyone in the city was looking at him. Yixin, guardian god. Some people were still unfamiliar with Yixin because Yixin had been away for too long. At this moment, Yixin suddenly smiled. Hello, everyone. Everyone looked at Yixin. Yixin thought for a moment. Then he opened his palm and casually waved it. In an instant, countless heavenly jades fell from the sky. Heavenly jades. These things weren't of much use to him anymore. However, there were close to 1 billion of them in his body. He directly took out 100 million and sprinkled them. When everyone received the heavenly jades, the whole city instantly boiled over. These heavenly jades weren't of much use to Yixin. However, for the people of the 5th dimension, they were definitely extremely rare. Instantly, countless people knelt down. Thank you, Alliance Leader Yi. Their voices were like thunder shaking the sky. In the sky, Yixin smiled. He returned to the ground and glanced at the crowd. Then he waved his right hand and everyone disappeared. When they reappeared, they were already in the 5th dimension hall. Inside the hall, all the people of the 5th dimension alliance had arrived. The people here could be said to be the most powerful and influential people in the 5th dimension. Yixin looked at the crowd and then said with a smile, just now, a small dispute occurred on the street. It wasn't a big matter, but I discovered some contradictions. I think everyone here should know about these contradictions. After saying that, he paused a bit before continuing, I know that wherever there are people, there will be contradictions. Especially since our 5th dimension is a big family. There are many races in this big family. Between different races, it's impossible for us to be of one mind. Everyone listened in silence and no one spoke. In fact, everyone here represented a group or a family. Yixin continued, as for how to solve this problem, all of you should solve it yourselves. I'm just bringing it up. When they heard Yixin, Amu and Guanyin rolled their eyes at Yixin. This fellow, he was too thorough in taking over the reins of power. Meanwhile, Yixin said with a smile, I brought a gift for all of you this time. As he spoke, he opened his palm and a few dozen spatial rings appeared. Everyone in the hall was visibly moved when they saw these spatial rings. They were extremely envious of the heavenly jades that Yixin had taken out just now. Yixin glanced at them and said with a smile, there are some inheritances and heavenly jades in these spatial rings. These are sufficient to make all of you and the forces behind you stronger. As for how strong, I can only say that it will completely change the strength of our 5th dimension. Everyone's eyes burned with desire when they heard this. At this moment, Yixin continued, I don't have much desire for power and I don't like to manage things. However, I will continue to be the leader of the 5th dimension. My request is very simple. I hope that the 5th dimension will be fine. I don't want anyone to cause trouble and destroy the unity of the 5th dimension. No one is allowed. As he spoke, he looked at Amu and said, not even the Wu clan. He knew that because of him, the Wu clan was slightly special in the 5th dimension. It was also because of this that some members of the Wu clan were slightly arrogant and despotic. Amu nodded. My Wu clan will change. Yixin said with a smile, let the youngsters of the Wu clan focus their attention on the outside world. The outside world is very, very big. Everyone should focus their attention on the outside world as well. At this moment, one of them suddenly asked, Alliance Leader Yi, how strong are you now? Everyone looked at Yixin curiously. Yixin laughed, don't ask. If you ask, then you're invincible. Ah. Everyone. Chapter 1988. Invincible. Hearing Yixin's words, all the experts of the 5th dimension in the hall looked at each other. Everyone was extremely shocked. An hour later, everyone left, leaving only Guanyin and Amu in the hall. Yixin opened his palm and 2 storage rings flew in front of the 2 women. The 2 women looked at Yixin but did not take the 2 storage rings. Yixin said, the highest realm in the universe that I have come into contact with is the limitless realm. In other words, there are no realms. There are many inheritances in these storage rings, including the limitless realm's inheritances, as well as enough resources for you to cultivate to the limitless realm. Saying this, he smiled. Now you can slowly hand over the authority in your hands. Of course, you have to give it to someone you can trust. The 2 women were silent. Yixin smiled. What's wrong? Guanyin smiled. We will cultivate well. However, we like this place very much and do not want to leave. Amu nodded. My clansmen are here. I also do not want to leave. Yixin laughed. I'm not asking you to leave. I just don't want you to delay your cultivation for the 5th dimension. Guan Yin suddenly said, "Are you going to leave?" Yi Xian nodded. Guan Yin was silent for a moment before asking, "Will you come back?" Yi Xian smiled. "Definitely." Qingzhou and the fifth dimension were places that he would never forget. Guan Yin smiled. "We will wait for you here. Also, the position of fifth dimension alliance leader will always be yours. Don't refuse. Other than you, no one can convince the masses." As Guan Yin had said, there were too many races in the fifth dimension. If there was no super expert to oversee the fifth dimension would fall into chaos. And Yi Xian happened to be a suitable candidate because he had once saved the fifth dimension. Yi Xian smiled. "I will not refuse the position of alliance leader. However, I still need you to govern the fifth dimension." Guan Yin rolled his eyes at Yi Xian. "I knew you would say that." Yi Xian laughed. After a while Yi Xian said, "Let's talk about two important things. First, you have to look further ahead." As he spoke, he told them about the Sky sect in the Azure province. After Yi Xian finished speaking, Guan Yin and Amu's expressions turned cold. Guan Yin said solemnly, "Don't worry, this won't happen again." Yi Xian nodded. "The second thing is what happened just now. I found that there is still hostility between the clans, especially the Wu clan." As he spoke, he looked at Amu. "Amu, you have to restrain the Wu clan." Amu nodded. "I will." Yi Xian smiled. "I have told you what I should. I have to go." The two women hurriedly got up. Amu hesitated for a while before saying, "You don't want to stay for a few more days?" Yi Xian smiled. "There is still a long way to go. I have to speed up." Previously, when he thought that Limitless was already close to Qing'er, he felt that he was about to catch up to Qing'er's footsteps. But the cruel reality told him that Limitless was still a little brother in front of Qing'er. He still had a long way to go. After a while Yi Xian left. Amu looked at Yi Xian's disappearing figure in the distance. No one knew what he was thinking about. Guan Yin smiled. "He will come back." Amu nodded slightly. "I know. I just don't know how long it will take for him to come back." Guan Yin smiled. "I think he will come back often in the future." Amu looked at Guan Yin. "What?" Guan Yin smiled. "Because I can feel that he has feelings for you." Amu shook her head. "Nonsense." Guan Yin laughed. "Can't you feel it yourself?" Amu did not say anything. Guan Yin continued. "There is something he cares about here. He will definitely come back. Just you wait." Amu turned to look at the sky outside the hall. After a long time, a smile appeared on her face. After Yi Xian left the hall, he did not immediately leave the fifth dimension. Instead he came to a courtyard. There was a woman sitting in the courtyard. Yi Jiming. Seeing Yi Xian, Yi Jiming smiled. "What are you doing here?" Yi Xian walked in front of Yi Jiming. "I'm here to meet an old friend." Hearing this, the corners of Yi Jiming's mouth lifted. Yi Xian sat in front of Yi Jiming. "How have you been?" Yi Jiming smiled. "I've been studying Taoist scriptures every day. I've completely understood them." Yi Xian blinked. "Are you interested in studying something else?" Yi Jiming smiled. "Let me see." Yi Xian opened his palm. A ray of white light directly entered Yi Jiming's forehead. Moments later, the smile on her face gradually disappeared. In its place was a solemn expression. After a long time, Yi Jiming looked at Yi Xian. "Amazing." Yi Xian took out a storage ring and placed it in front of Yi Jiming. "This is enough for you to cultivate for a long time. Cultivate well. I hope that the next time we meet you will have reached the inaction realm." With that, he stood up and was about to leave. Yi Jiming suddenly asked, "Why?" Yi Xian was taken aback. Then he smiled. "Why what?" Yi Jiming waved the storage ring in his hand. "Why are you giving me this?" Yi Xian smiled. "Back then we depended on each other for a long time. You can't have forgotten, right?" Yi Jiming fell silent. Yi Xian smiled. "Jiming, we will meet again." With that, he turned into a sword light and disappeared into the horizon. Yi Jiming looked at the sword light in the horizon and remained silent for a long time. Yi Xian came to a starry sky. This was where Sister Nian used to stay. Sister Nian. Yi Xian looked around and smiled. He had to admit that he missed Sister Nian. Yi Xian took another look at his surroundings. Just as he was about to leave on his sword, a giant cloud ship suddenly appeared in the distance. No, it wasn't a cloud ship. It looked like a starship. However, there was something different about it. On the starship, Yi Xian saw 3 words, Milky Way Sect. Milky Way Sect? Yi Xian was stunned. Right. The first thing he thought of was that anti-human knife. At this moment, Yi Xian suddenly showed up in front of the starship. A strong force shrouded him as soon as he showed up. Then a laser was shot at him directly. Yixin flicked his sleeves. Boom. The laser was instantly annihilated. At this moment, a woman suddenly flew out of the starship. Yixin's face darkened when he saw her. It really was Ninth. He didn't expect to meet Ninth here. Ninth was slightly stunned when she saw Yixin. Then she smiled. It's you. Yixin walked to Ninth. Ninth, why are you here? Ninth smiled. I'm exploring the universe with the students of the Milky Way sect. Yixin frowned. Students of the Milky Way sect? Ninth turned around and pointed at the starship in the distance. Yixin followed her finger and looked over. He saw some students on the starship. There were both men and women among them, and they were dressed strangely. It was too similar to Arya's style of dress. At this moment, a middle-aged man showed up next to Jiao. The middle-aged man was wearing an outfit that Yixin had never seen before. He was also wearing a weird hat. There were a few stars on the middle-aged man's shoulder. Yixin had no idea what they meant. The middle-aged man glanced at Yixin and said, Miss Ninth, who is this? Ninth smiled. He's your young sect master. Young sect master? The middle-aged man was slightly stunned. Meanwhile, Ninth looked at Yixin. Activate your bloodline. Yixin hesitated for a moment before he activated the power of his bloodline. Bang. The middle-aged man was slightly stunned when he activated the Mad Demon bloodline. In the next moment he stood at attention and saluted. Milky Way Sect's Chief Instructor, Xiao Xin, greets the young sect master. Chief Instructor. In the Milky Way Sect, his status was so high that it was only inferior to Yang Lianshuang and a few others. Xiao Xin's salute caused Yixin to be slightly stunned. He hesitated for a moment before he said, There's no need to be so polite. Xiao Xin was slightly excited. I never expected to see the young sect master here. As he spoke, he turned around to look at all the students on the starship. All of you brats, quickly greet the young sect master. Young sect master. Actually, the person with the highest prestige in the Milky Way sect was Yixin's father, the man in green clothes. Besides Yang Lianshuang, practically no one from the Milky Way sect had seen the man in green clothes. However, all the members of the Milky Way sect respected the man in green clothes like a god. Because if it wasn't for the man in green clothes, the Milky Way sect wouldn't exist. Actually, the man in green clothes hadn't done much. It was Arya and Little White who had helped Yang Lianshuang establish the Milky Way sect. Actually, the two little fellows hadn't done much. However, they'd contributed money. Not only had they brought a large number of mysterious cultivation techniques to the Milky Way galaxy, but they'd also changed the spiritual energy and environment of the Milky Way galaxy, making the entire Milky Way galaxy suitable for cultivation. The two little fellows had directly changed the fate of the entire Milky Way galaxy. And the two little fellows had done it in the name of the man in green clothes. And Yang Lianshuang was also clear that if the Milky Way sect wanted to walk out of the Milky Way galaxy, they had to find a powerful backer. The man in green clothes was the perfect candidate. Therefore, under her intentional promotion, the man in green clothes had become a godlike existence in the Milky Way galaxy. Naturally, Yixin had also become the young sect master. At this moment, the students on the starship had come before Yixin. They sized up Yixin curiously. One of the female students said softly, He's so young. Yixin looked at the female student and smiled. Young? The female student hurriedly nodded. She hesitated for a moment before saying, Young sect master, are you the legendary swordsman? Yixin nodded. Yes. The female student's eyes lit up. Can you show us the 10,000 swords returned to origin? Yixin was stunned. The 10,000 swords returned to origin? The female student nodded. It's the extremely cool type where there are many swords. Yixin roared with laughter. With a command in his heart, hundreds of thousands of swords appeared behind him in an instant. At the same time, the entire Milky Way galaxy started trembling. The students present were petrified when they witnessed this scene. Xiao Xin's eyes opened wide, and they were filled with disbelief. Yixin looked at the female student and smiled. Is it like this? The female student gulped and then she said, Holy shit, Plath is awesome. Remember the people who appeared today? Chapter 1989. All the students from the Milky Way were dumbfounded. Is he even human? They've cultivated as well and they've seen formidable cultivators. However, they've never seen such a terrifying cultivator. The dense swords could probably easily destroy the entire Milky Way. No, it wasn't afraid, it was absolutely possible. Because the entire star region was seething with excitement after the swords appeared. This meant that the star region couldn't withstand the might of the swords at all. At this moment all the students were beyond shocked. The scene before them refreshed their understanding of the martial Tao. So a single person's strength could actually be this strong. Meanwhile Yi Xian opened his palm, and in an instant, the swords transformed into rays of light that entered his body. All the students recovered from their shock, and there was a trace of reverence in their eyes as they looked at Yi Xian. The female student in front of Yi Xian hesitated for a moment before she said, "Young sect master, can I become a swordsman as well?" The other students looked at Yi Xian as well, and their eyes were filled with anticipation. Yi Xian looked at the female student and smiled. "You want to become a swordsman?" The female student nodded vigorously. Yi Xian glanced at the female student. She was wearing a tight-fitting leather suit. He had never seen such a material before. The tight-fitting leather pants accentuated the woman's perfect figure to the fullest. Because she was tall to begin with, especially her legs, they were extraordinarily long. Not only were her legs long, but the places that should be big were extremely big as well. Amongst this group of students, the woman's appearance and figure were definitely the best. Yi Xian smiled. "What's your name?" The female student hurriedly replied, "Feng Chaoga." "Feng Chaoga." Yi Xian smiled. "What an interesting name. Can you tell me why you want to become a swordsman?" The female student replied directly, "Because you're acting cool." Yi Xian's face darkened. Xiao Xian's expression was slightly ugly as well. Silly girl, how could she say that? Can't you say it's to protect the Milky Way? No matter what, he had to make it sound more righteous. At this time Yi Xian suddenly laughed. Everyone was slightly puzzled when they saw Yi Xian smile. After a while Yi Xian looked at Feng Chaoga and smiled, "I'll teach you." As he spoke, he opened his palm and a ray of sword aura entered Feng Chaoga's forehead. Boom. Feng Chaoga shuddered as countless pieces of information poured into her head. All the students revealed envious gazes when they witnessed this scene. Indeed, at any time, one needed to be bold and thick-skinned. Some things, if you don't ask, if you don't do it, you definitely won't have a chance. But if you do it, you definitely have a chance. Opportunities were always grasped by oneself. A few moments later, Feng Chaoga opened her eyes and looked at Yi Xian in excitement. "Is this the legendary cultivation transfer?" Yi Xian chuckled. "I've left an inheritance within you. You can cultivate well, and it won't be long before you become the #1 swordsman in the Milky Way." The #1 swordsman in the Milky Way. Feng Chaoga's eyes lit up when she heard this. Yi Xian glanced at the students, and then he thought for a moment before he opened his palm, causing a few dozen spatial rings to float in front of them. Yi Xian smiled, "Take it as a greeting gift." "A greeting gift." Xiao Xian immediately stood at attention, and then he bowed and shouted, "Thank you, young sect master." The other students returned to their senses and bowed as well. Yi Xian smiled and then he looked at Jiu. "Jiu, where are all of you going now?" Jiu said, "We're going back." Yi Xian was quite curious, "Where did all of you go just now?" Jiu pointed into the distance. "There's a cosmic barrier over there that we can't break through. So, we can only travel this far. However, this is enough. These little fellows have gained a lot from this trip." Meanwhile, Feng Chaoga suddenly said, "Young sect master. Does this swordsman need a sword?" "A sword?" Yi Xian looked at Feng Chaoga and smiled, "Of course." As he spoke, he opened his palm and a sword flew over to Feng Chaoga. "Here, I'll give you a sword." Needless to say, this little girl was quite crafty. However, he didn't dislike it because he was the same kind of person. Feng Chaoga was extremely excited when she saw the sword in front of her, and she hurriedly said, "Thank you, young sect master." "Thank you." Although the Milky Way sect's technology was very advanced, and they were able to forge some divine objects, there was still a huge gap between them and some top-notch divine objects in this universe. For example, the sword in Yi Xian's hand wasn't something that the Milky Way sect could forge right now. Xiao Xian glanced at Feng Chaoga, his eyes full of envy. At this moment Yi Xian suddenly looked at Xiao Xian and he smiled, "You're not suitable to be a swordsman, but you're suitable to be a physical cultivator. I have many physical cultivation techniques here, do you want to cultivate them?" Hearing this, Xiao Xian said excitedly, "Cultivation. I'll cultivate." Yi Xian smiled and he bent his finger, and a ray of light entered Xiao Xian's eyebrows. A moment later Xiao Xian opened his eyes and he knelt on one knee in front of Yi Xian, and said excitedly, "Thank you, young sect master." Yi Xian smiled, "It's no big deal." As he spoke, he gently moved his finger and Xiao Xian was lifted up by a gentle force. At this moment, Jiu suddenly said, "Do you want to follow us to the Milky Way to play?" Hearing Jiu's words, all the students looked at Yi Xian, their eyes full of anticipation. The Milky Way? Yi Xian was stunned and then said with a smile, "Is it the place where little White and Arya went to play?" Jiu nodded, "Yes." Yi Xian thought for a moment and then said with a smile, "I won't go." Jiu was a little puzzled. "Why? It's different from here, it's very fun. Moreover, you and the sect master have never been to the Milky Way. As the sect master and young sect master, this is a bit unreasonable." Yi Xian said with a smile, "Go another day. I have some other things to deal with now." Hearing Yi Xian's words, all the students present were a little disappointed. Jiu thought for a moment and then said with a smile, "I won't force you. Remember, if you have a chance in the future, you must come to the Milky Way to play." Yi Xian said with a smile, "Definitely." As he spoke, he turned to look into the distance. "The Milky Way is in that place, right?" Jiu nodded, "Yes." Yi Xian suddenly drew his sword and slashed. A huge rift split open in space in front of Yi Xian. Yi Xian said with a smile, "All of you can teleport through space from there, and it won't take long for you to arrive in the Milky Way. Don't be afraid of danger. With the protection of my sword, the spatial turbulence won't be a threat to all of you. However, don't do anything rash or you might enter a place like the spatial abyss." Jiu smiled, "Thank you." Yi Xian turned to look at the students. "Everyone will meet again." All the students bowed respectfully. Yi Xian was about to leave when Feng Chaoge said, "Young sect master, are you the best in the way of the sword in the entire universe?" Yi Xian blinked, "What do you think?" Feng Chaoge said seriously, "I think you're invincible." Yi Xian said seriously, "I think so too." Ah. As he spoke, he flew up on his sword and vanished into the distance in the blink of an eye. Sword doctrine Yi Xian had left. Everyone's faces turned gloomy. Meanwhile, one of the students spoke in a trembling voice, "Oh my God! Look at what young sect master gave us." They immediately opened their spatial rings to see a huge pile of heavenly crystals, and there were tens of thousands of them in each spatial ring. Spiritual stones were extremely precious in the Milky Way. Although Little White had changed the environment there, it hadn't been long, so there were very few spiritual stones there. After all, spiritual stones were condensed from spiritual energy, and it took time for them to condense. The spiritual stones that Yi Xian had given them were obviously no ordinary spiritual stones. The purity of the spiritual stones had completely exceeded their understanding. Everyone was extremely excited. It was time to change their fate. Feng Chaoge looked at the spatial ring in her hand and remained silent for a long time. After a long time she smiled. The Milky Way's #1 swordsman. Right at this moment, #9 suddenly frowned and then her face fell. "Everyone, we have to rush back to the Milky Way galaxy right away." Xiao Xian looked at Jiu. "What's wrong?" Jiu said solemnly, "The Milky Way is in trouble. Let's go." With that, everyone hurriedly returned to the starship. In the next moment, the starship entered the spatial rift, and in the blink of an eye, the spatial rift closed. After parting ways with Jiu and the others, Yi Xian went straight to the 9th dimension. The Undying Emperor clan. He naturally wouldn't forget this clan. Back then, the Undying Emperor clan had almost been annihilated for him. The Undying Realm. The Undying Emperor clan had become the strongest faction in the 9th dimension. The territories that were once hostile to them had been devoured by the Undying Emperor clan. Therefore, the Undying Emperor clan's influence had expanded rapidly. In the 9th dimension, the Undying Emperor clan was invincible. Even the Tendo of the 9th dimension didn't dare to provoke the Undying Emperor clan. When Yi Xian entered the Undying Realm, a black-clothed old man suddenly appeared in front of him. He looked at Yi Xian and said, "You are?" Hearing that, Yi Xian was stunned and then he said, "You don't know me?" At that moment he was slightly dumbfounded. It was understandable that the people of the 5th dimension didn't know him, but this Undying Emperor clan didn't know him either. That didn't make sense. The black-clothed old man looked at Yi Xian and frowned. "You do look familiar." Yi Xian. At that moment, the black-clothed old man carefully sized up Yi Xian. After a moment, he hesitated and then he said, "Can you remind me?" Yi Xian was speechless. He directly activated the Undying Emperor clan's bloodline in his body. Seeing that, the black-clothed old man was stunned. "You," Yi Xian smiled and said, "Do you recognize me?" The black-clothed old man said in a low voice, "You have my Undying Emperor clan's bloodline in your body. This proves that you are a member of my Undying Emperor clan. However, the old man has never seen you before." In other words, as he spoke, he looked at Yi Xian and said, In other words, you are an illegitimate child. Whose illegitimate child are you? Hearing that, Yi Xian's expression froze and he almost fainted. Chapter 1990. Illegitimate child? Yi Xian almost fainted on the spot. Right at this moment, a woman suddenly appeared. The old man's expression changed drastically when he saw the woman, and he hurriedly bowed respectfully. Clan leader. Clan leader. It was the clan leader of the undead clan, Dong Li Jing. Dong Li Jing looked at Yi Xian. When did you arrive? Yi Xian smiled. Just arrived. Dong Li Jing nodded slightly. Let's talk somewhere else. With that, she turned around and left, but she had only taken a few steps when she suddenly looked at the old man. You don't know who he is? The old man was shocked. Clan leader, he is, Dong Li Jing said. Young clan leader. With that, she walked off into the distance. Young clan leader. The old man was stunned on the spot. Young clan leader Yi Xian. The only young clan leader of the undead imperial clan that didn't have a surname. He naturally knew about Yi Xian, but he had never seen Yi Xian before. When Yi Xian led the undead imperial clan against the enemy, he was just a small fry. At that time he wasn't qualified to get close to Yi Xian. Therefore, although he had seen Yi Xian once or twice, he wasn't familiar with Yi Xian. Moreover, Yi Xian had been gone for hundreds of years. Yi Xian glanced at the old man feeling slightly depressed, but he didn't say anything and left with Dong Li Jing. After a short while, the old man suddenly said in a trembling voice, He's back. Young clan leader is back. In a short while, the entire undead imperial clan knew that Yi Xian had returned. In the undead palace. Many elders of the undead imperial clan were gathered in the palace, including Dong Li Zhan, Dong Li Ao, and other people that Yi Xian was familiar with. Everyone was looking at Yi Xian, and Yi Xian was slightly embarrassed. Dong Li Jing suddenly said, Where are you? Yi Xian smiled. Dao Brink. Higashi Kei looked at Yi Xian. Dao Brink? Yi Xian nodded. It's somewhere very far from here. Stay a little longer? Higashi Yasushi asked after a brief moment of silence. Yi Xian said with a smile, I came here this time to see you, and also to give some gifts to my clansmen. Presents? Hearing this, everyone in the hall laughed. It wasn't because of the gift, but because of the word, clansmen. Higashi Kei glanced at Yi Xian and nodded slightly. The gifts aren't that important. Just come back often to visit. Meanwhile, Yi Xian opened his palm, and a few dozen spatial rings flew towards them. When they saw the heavenly supreme crystals in the spatial rings, they couldn't stay calm anymore. Each of the storage rings contained over 10 million heavenly extreme crystals. There were over 100 million of them in Dong Li Jing's storage ring. Although the Immortal Emperor clan was very wealthy, since they controlled so many worlds, the heavenly supreme crystals were not ordinary spiritual stones. This kind of divine item could not be produced in a place like the nine-dimensional universe. Even Higashi Yasushi couldn't stay calm anymore. Her intuition told her that the overall strength of the Immortal Emperor clan would undergo an earth-shattering change. Higashi Yasushi looked at Yi Xian. What gifts? Come back more often in the future. It's good to bring some gifts. Yi Xian. Inside the hall, everyone was extremely excited. These cultivation resources were enough to change their destiny. At this time Yi Xian said, I have some things here that should be helpful to everyone. Then he pointed his finger, and a few dozen white lights disappeared into the space between the eyebrows of everyone in the hall. Inheritance. Among the white lights, there were some cultivation inheritances that he had obtained along the way, which were enough for everyone to cultivate to the heartless state. As for Dong Li Jing, Dong Li Zhan, and the others, the inheritance that Yi Xian gave them could directly cultivate to the Taoist state. The Taoist state. Even with his help, it would not be easy for Higashi Yasushi and the others to reach the Taoist state. It should be known that Nakayama of Silla and the others had spent at least tens of millions of years to reach the Taoist state. It would be very difficult for Higashi Yasushi and the others to reach the Taoist state, but at least there was hope. After a while, only Yi Xian and Higashi Yasushi were left in the hall. Higashi Yasushi said softly, Come with me. Then she walked out of the hall. Yi Xian quickly followed behind Higashi Yasushi. He was very respectful to Higashi Yasushi. When the two of them arrived outside the hall, there were already countless people from the Immortal Emperor clan gathered outside. Until now, the Immortal Emperor clan did not have a prince or young master. Because of Yi Xian. Even though Yi Xian had been gone for hundreds of years, he was still the young master of the Immortal Emperor clan. The very first batch of youngsters from the Undying Imperial clan had all submitted to Yi Xian. That was because Yi Xian had been the #1 person of the undying imperial clan's younger generation back then. However, as that batch of youngsters grew up, more and more youngsters appeared in the undying imperial clan. Many people were unconvinced. Why was an outsider always occupying the position of young master? At this moment, a man suddenly appeared in front of Yi Xian and Higashi Yasushi. The man bowed deeply to Higashi Yasushi. Clan chief. Higashi Yasushi nodded slightly. She looked at Yi Xian, Dong Liyan, the #1 expert of the younger generation in the Immortal Emperor clan. Yi Xian was about to speak, but Dong Liyan looked at Yi Xian. I want to challenge you. Challenge you? Very direct. Yi Xian looked at Dong Liyan and smiled. Why? Dong Liyan smiled. You've occupied the position of young master for hundreds of years. I'm not very convinced. Yi Xian came to an understanding. He wanted the position of young master. Yi Xian gazed at Higashi Yasushi. She didn't speak. Yi Xian thought for a moment and then he smiled. Let's fight if you're not convinced. A smile appeared on Higashi Yasushi's face. Actually, she really cared about Yi Xian's attitude. Did Yi Xian admit that he was from the Immortal Emperor clan? Obviously, Yi Xian had always considered himself to be from the Immortal Emperor clan. With his heart it was enough. All the members of the Immortal Emperor clan seethed with excitement when they heard Yi Xian's words. Fight. Countless members of the Immortal Emperor clan roared in unison. The Immortal Emperor clan didn't lack backbone and hot-bloodedness. Dong Liyan, who stood opposite Yi Xian, smiled. Shall we go somewhere else? Yi Xian smiled. There's no need for that. Take a strike from me. If you can withstand it, then the position of young master will be yours. Dong Liyan's eyes narrowed slightly. Confidence is a good thing, but if you're conceited. Yi Xian roared with laughter. I'm going to attack. Dong Liyan gazed at Yi Xian. I'm ready. Dong Liyan's voice had just resounded when a sword was pressed against the center of his forehead. The sword pierced half an inch into his forehead, and a drop of blood flowed down the tip of the sword and onto the bridge of his nose. The surroundings fell deathly silent. I lost? I lost just like that? Dong Liyan's eyes were filled with confusion, and he seemed as if he'd lost his soul. He'd never underestimated Yi Xian. Because while he hadn't met Yi Xian, he'd heard of Yi Xian's legends. He knew that Yi Xian was very strong, and he'd prepared his ultimate move. However, he'd never imagined that Yi Xian would actually be strong to such an extent. Yi Xian turned around to look at Dong Lijing and smiled. Patriarch, let's go. Dong Lijing nodded lightly, and then he walked towards the distance. Yi Xian opened his palm, and the azure profound sword returned to his hand. He followed Dong Lijing and walked towards the distance. Meanwhile, Dong Liyan suddenly said, I'm convinced. Yi Xian roared with laughter, and then he opened his palm. A strand of sword light flew out from his palm, and then it descended firmly onto the square. The others were slightly puzzled. Meanwhile, Yi Xian's voice sounded out from afar. From today onward, anyone who shatters this strand of sword light of mine will be the next young master of the Immortal Emperor clan. Everyone. From that moment onward, Yi Xian's strand of sword light had existed on the square for 30 million years. In these 30 million years, no one from the Immortal Emperor clan had been able to break through this strand of sword light. Because the stronger Yi Xian was, the stronger the strand of sword light was. This strand of sword light contained a strand of his sword intent. In these 30 million years, there were many new patriarchs in the Immortal Emperor clan. However, there was always only one young master, and that was Yi Xian. Because no one had been able to break through the strand of sword light that Yi Xian had left behind. This strand of sword light had caused countless monstrous geniuses of the Immortal Emperor clan to despair. Until one day 30 million years later, a young man came to the Immortal Emperor clan. Yi Xian and Dong Lijing walked to a garden, and Dong Lijing said softly, You're very strong now, so strong that the entire Immortal Emperor clan combined isn't as strong as you. She couldn't see through the current Yi Xian. Yi Xian's growth during this period of time after he had gone out was really terrifying. Yi Xian smiled and said, No matter how much I grow in the future, I will always be a member of the Immortal Emperor clan. Dong Lijing looked at Yi Xian and smiled. This will always be your home. Yi Xian smiled and said, I know. Dong Lijing was silent for a moment, then asked, Where's your mother? Mother. Yi Xian was silent. Dong Linan. After a moment Yi Xian said, She left with Dad. I don't know where Dad is now. I've been chasing after him and Qing, but I don't know if I can keep up with them. Dong Lijing said, Definitely. Yi Xian was confused. Why? Dong Lijing looked at Yi Xian and said, Because they're waiting for you. Yi Xian. The two continued forward. After a moment, Dong Lijing stopped and said softly, "Let's go." Yi Xian looked at Dong Lijing. Dong Lijing smiled and said, "Come back often." Yi Xian smiled and said, "Definitely. Patriarch, you take care." As he spoke, he flashed up and transformed into a ray of light that vanished into the horizon. After Yi Xian left, Dong Lijian appeared next to Dong Lijing and looked at the horizon. "Gone?" Dong Lijing nodded. Dong Lijian said in a deep voice, "The crystals he left behind are very precious." Dong Lijing smiled and said, "Precious to what extent?" Dong Lijian hesitated and said, "To change all of our fates." Dong Lijing was silent. Dong Lijian said softly, "Dong Liyan, that little guy was shocked." Not only him but all the other little guys were shocked. Dong Lijing smiled and said, "It's not a bad thing." Dong Lijian laughed and said, "Indeed. These young people of the Immortal Emperor clan had no natural enemies in the entire 9 dimensions. It was not a bad thing to be shocked this time." Dong Lijing looked at the horizon and said softly, "Young man, I wish you all the best. P.S. I wish you all the votes." Chapter 1991. By the lake in front of the hut. It was drizzling and the rain fell silently on the lake, forming little ripples. Not far from the lake there was a bamboo hut, and in front of the bamboo hut, a woman was lying. The woman wore a red dress and her legs were crossed. She held an ancient book in her hand and she was reading it with relish. At this moment, the woman suddenly put down the ancient book in her hand, and she looked not far away. In the distance a man was slowly walking over. Seeing this man, the woman was slightly taken aback. The person who came was Yi Xian. Yi Xian walked in front of the woman and smiled, "Disaster, long time no see." The woman in front of him was the law of disaster that caused him to suffer a lot. Disaster looked at Yi Xian, "I thought you were dead." Yi Xian smiled, "How could that be?" With that he glanced around and then said, "Only you?" Disaster nodded, "They all went out." Yi Xian asked, "Where to?" Calamity shrugged. "Wandering around." Yi Xian thought for a moment and then said, "Did Dowie come back?" Disaster shook her head, "No. We didn't see her again." After a moment of silence, Yi Xian took out a storage ring, placed it in front of Disaster and then turned to leave. Disaster glanced at the storage ring and then said, "Wait." Yi Xian turned to look at Disaster and said with a smile, "What?" Disaster was silent for a moment and then said, "You." At this point she paused and then said, "You can go." Yi Xian. Disaster glanced at Yi Xian. "Xiaodao and Little Misfortune are in Heavenly Capital City." Mu Xiaodao. Little Misfortune. Yi Xian smiled slightly, "Thank you." As soon as he finished speaking, he disappeared. Disaster looked at the storage ring in front of her and didn't speak for a long time. Heavenly Capital City. Yi Xian came to Heavenly Capital City, and he glanced at the entire city. In the next moment he frowned. Because he didn't sense Mu Xiaodao and Little Misfortune. Did they leave? After a moment of silence, Yi Xian released his divine sense. In the next moment his divine sense spread out like a net. In an instant, everything within a radius of tens of millions of miles was enveloped by his divine sense. Soon, the corners of Yi Xian's mouth curled up slightly, and in the next moment he disappeared on the spot. In a certain place, Mu Xiaodao and Xiao Er were standing back to back, surrounded by dozens of alien experts. Alien dimensional people. Back then, because of Yi Xian, Dao Yi's former clansmen didn't invade this universe again. However, the hatred between them and Calamity and the others hadn't been resolved. Once the two sides met, they would definitely fight. Mu Xiaodao glanced at those dimensional people. "Fuck, I didn't expect to run into these trash." Xiao Er said calmly, "So be it. What are you afraid of?" Mu Xiaodao asked in a deep voice, "How many do you want to fight?" Xiao Er was about to speak when a man suddenly appeared in front of the two women. The person who came was Yi Xian. Seeing Yi Xian, the two women were stunned. Yi Xian blinked. "You don't recognize me?" F***CK. Mu Xiaodao looked at Yi Xian in astonishment. You're not dead yet." Yi Xian's complexion immediately darkened. At this time Mu Xiaodao walked in front of Yi Xian, lightly patted Yi Xian's face and said, "You're really alive." Yi Xian. Mu Xiaodao sized up Yi Xian then said, "What are you doing here?" Yi Xian smiled. "Aren't you happy to see me?" Mu Xiaodao was about to speak, but at this time one of the dimensional people next to her fiercely said, "Are you guys done?" Yi Xian suddenly turned his head. "Did I allow you to speak?" As soon as he finished speaking, a sword directly pierced the forehead of that dimensional person. Bang! That dimensional person directly turned into nothingness. Everyone was dumbfounded. Mu Xiaodao and Xiao Er's eyes were also filled with astonishment. Instantly killed? At this time, one of the dimensional people said in a trembling voice, Who are you? Yi Xian looked at that dimensional person. You're a dimensional person? He naturally hadn't forgotten about this race because Dao Yi was one of them. Of course, he didn't have a good impression of this race. That dimensional person in the lead was about to speak, when Mu Xiaodao suddenly said, Kill them! Yi Xian laughed and flicked his sleeves. Bang! More than 10 dimensional people disappeared on the spot. They were directly wiped out. Seeing this, Mu Xiaodao couldn't help but give a thumbs up. Awesome. Xiao Er glanced at Yi Xian, but didn't say anything. Yi Xian laughed. Xiao Er, are you interested in following me to a new place? Mu Xiaodao immediately shook her head. Not interested. Yi Xian didn't understand. Why not? Mu Xiaodao calmly said, The new place you're talking about is much stronger than this place, right? Yi Xian nodded. Yes. Mu Xiaodao shrugged. If we go there now, won't we become the younger brother of the younger brother? Yi Xian, Mu Xiaodao blinked. Why don't you give us some inheritances and resources? After we increase our strength, we'll go find you. Yi Xian's face was filled with black lines. You really aren't polite. Mu Xiaodao chuckled. No problem, right? Yi Xian rolled his eyes at Mu Xiaodao. Then he opened his palm and 2 storage rings flew in front of the 2 girls. Mu Xiaodao didn't hold back at all. She directly picked up the storage rings. When she saw what was inside, her eyes instantly lit up. Yi Xian smiled. Are you really not coming with me? Mu Xiaodao shook her head. Yi Xian looked at Xiao Er. Xiao Er hesitated for a moment, then also shook her head. Yi Xian thought for a moment, then opened his palm, and 2 rays of sword light entered the 2 girls' eyebrows. I left a wisp of sword chi in your bodies. If you have any problems, activate the sword chi. As long as I'm alive, I'll rush over at any time. Mu Xiaodao glanced at Yi Xian. How strong are you now? Yi Xian smiled. Invincible. Invincible. Mu Xiaodao rolled her eyes at Yi Xian. Can you beat your sister? Yi Xian's expression froze. Mu Xiaodao asked, Can you beat her? Yi Xian thought for a moment, then said, Compared to Qing, I should still be a little bit weaker. But it shouldn't be that big. Xiao Ta, Mu Xiaodao shook her head. You never speak a word of truth. Yi Xian laughed. He looked around, then said, I'm leaving. Mu Xiaodao nodded. Let's go. Come back often in the future. We don't really care about the things, just give us some. The main thing is to come back often. We actually miss you. Yi Xian glared at Mu Xiaodao. Like hell I'll believe you. Saying that, he looked at Xiao Er. He hesitated for a moment, then smiled. Xiao Er, why do I feel like we're a little estranged? Xiao Er looked at Yi Xian. Is that so? Yi Xian smiled. I feel like it. Xiao Er was silent. Mu Xiaodao suddenly said, Of course it's estranged. You've been gone for so long we thought you were dead. Yi Xian smiled. It's my fault. Mu Xiaodao nodded. If you want to leave, then leave quickly. Xiao Er isn't angry at you. Just come back often in the future and bring some things back. If you really can't come back, then get someone to bring the things back. We'll understand. Yi Xian's face darkened. Damn, why are you acting like a bandit? After chatting with the 2 girls for a while, Yi Xian rode his sword and left. After Yi Xian left, Xiao Er looked at the end of the galaxy in the distance. No one knew what he was thinking. At this moment, Mu Xiaodao said disdainfully, Xiao Er, I despise you. Xiao Er looked at Mu Xiaodao and frowned. What do you mean? Mu Xiaodao said calmly, You like him but don't say it. You're such a coward. Xiao Er said angrily, Who likes him? Mu Xiaodao shrugged. Fine, fine. If you don't like him, then continue waiting. This guy is extremely thick-skinned, strong, and a swordsman. A powerful swordsman. If you don't take the initiative, you won't have a chance. Xiao Er was furious and wanted to say something. At this moment, Mu Xiaodao said again, Just you wait. If I like a man, I'll go after him. If I can't get him, I'll sleep with him. If I can't sleep with him, I'll cut him up. If I can't sleep with him, no one else can. Xiao Er was speechless. Yi Xian returned to Dao border. Daolin Nation. When he learned that Yi Xian had arrived, Nakayama of Silla came out to welcome him personally. When he saw Yi Xian, Nakayama of Silla laughed. Young Master Yi, are you going to that legendary alternate world? Alternate world. That place had a real infinite realm boss. Yi Xian thought about it and then shook his head. No. Hearing that, Nakayama of Silla was stunned. Yi Xian smiled. If I go now I'll get beaten up. I'm going to rest until I reach infinite realm. This time, I don't want to be a little brother. I want to enter the next map in an invincible manner. Nakayama of Silla was speechless. Yi Xian said again, Senior, I need to go into seclusion here for some time. Nakayama of Silla said solemnly, All right. I'll protect you. Yi Xian smiled. Thank you. Saying that, he followed Nakayama of Silla to a starry cultivation ground. This was where Nakayama of Silla usually cultivated. Nakayama of Silla said, Young Master Yi, you can cultivate here. No one will disturb you. Yi Xian cupped his fists. Thank you. Nakayama of Silla smiled. No problem. Yi Xian nodded and didn't say anything else. He entered Xiaota. After entering Xiaota, Yi Xian went to Yan Bianshan. At this moment, Yan Bianshan was like a statue. He didn't move at all and didn't have any aura. Yi Xian was speechless. He hadn't expected that Yan Bianshan still hadn't reached infinite realm. After all, Yan Bianshan had been cultivating in Xiaota for almost 300 years. Yi Xian said softly, Looks like infinite realm isn't that easy to reach. As he spoke, he found a place and sat down cross-legged. After that, the inheritance that Dao Ling had left for him appeared in his mind. The inheritance contained some of her experiences and methods to reach infinite realm. Besides that, there was also some methods to use the green profound sword. However, he didn't study it for now. His top priority was to reach infinite realm first, because there was a huge gap between his current strength and infinite realm. Even the green profound sword could make up for this gap. Time passed little by little in the cultivation world. Chapter 1992. Limitless Realm? What was Limitless Realm? As the name suggested, it meant that there were no realms. The Taoist heart was at ease and was not restricted by anything. That was Limitless Realm. How difficult was it for a person to have a Taoist heart at ease? To reach Limitless Realm, one not only had to cultivate but they also had to understand. In fact, the most important thing was still this understanding. In the following days, Yi Xian began to cultivate in isolation. He knew very well that this was his chance. Because he had no enemies now, no one would target him for no reason. His next destination was the alternate world. Before that, he had to reach Limitless Realm. He really didn't want to go to the next place and be a little brother. Cultivation knew no time. Time passed bit by bit. 100 years later. On this day, Yan Bianshan, who was sitting cross-legged on the ground, suddenly opened her eyes. In the next moment, she slowly stood up. The moment she stood up, the entire world inside Xiaota became illusory, but it quickly returned to normal. Yan Bianshan looked around and a trace of vicissitudes flashed in her eyes. After a long time, she suddenly took a step forward. With this step, she was already in front of Yi Xian. Looking at Yi Xian, who was already in meditation, she remained silent. After a long time, Yan Bianshan turned around and took a step forward. With this step, she was already away from Xiaota. In the starry sky, Yan Bianshan looked up. At this moment, Nakayama of Silla suddenly appeared in front of her. Seeing Yan Bianshan, Nakayama of Silla's pupils suddenly shrank. In the next moment he bowed deeply, Mountain Lord Yan. He knew that Yan Bianshan had reached Limitless Realm. Yan Bianshan was expressionless. Where are the law enforcement sect in Yunjie? Nakayama of Silla hurriedly said, They have been killed by young Master Yi. Yan Bianshan frowned slightly. He is alone? Nakayama of Silla nodded. Yan Bianshan was silent. After a long time, Yan Bianshan looked at the horizon and softly said, I know. Nakayama of Silla lowered his head slightly and didn't speak. At this moment, Yan Bianshan said, I will protect him. Nakayama of Silla bowed deeply and then quietly retreated. Yan Bianshan slowly closed his eyes. No one knew what he was thinking. Inside the Xiaota, Yi Xian was still comprehending. He had to admit that cultivation was boring. For the past 100 years he hadn't moved at all. However, he could endure this kind of loneliness. If you want to be above others, you have to endure hardships. Another 100 years passed. On this day, Yi Xian suddenly opened his eyes. He stood up and took a step forward. With this step, he directly arrived at the Women's Academy, the all-women's college founded by Sister Nian. Yi Xian didn't enter the Women's Academy. He was looking down from the clouds. In one of the courtyards below, he saw a woman, Yi Ling. At this moment, Yi Ling was concentrating on carving a wooden figure. Every time she carved, she would blow on it and then continue. She carved very seriously. After a long time, the small wooden figure in her hand turned into Yi Xian's appearance. Seeing this, a smile appeared on Yi Ling's face. In the clouds, Yi Xian also smiled when he saw this. The moment he laughed, the surrounding clouds began to boil. Gradually, the entire sky and the entire divine Dao nation began to tremble. For a moment, countless people were shocked and looked in the direction of Yi Xian. At this moment, Yi Ling, who was below, seemed to sense something. She suddenly raised her head, and at this moment, Yi Xian suddenly appeared in front of her. Seeing Yi Xian, Yi Ling was slightly stunned. The next moment, she directly threw herself into Yi Xian's arms. "Brother, brother?" Yi Xian gently hugged Yi Ling and smiled. In Xiaota he had encountered a bottleneck, an invisible bottleneck. He did not know what was blocking him. He only knew that no matter how hard he tried, he could not cross that barrier. In the end, he decided to go out for a walk. In the instant that he saw Yi Ling, he suddenly understood what the barrier that was blocking him was. It was his original intention of cultivating the sword. What was his original intention of cultivating the sword? Was it to show off? Obviously not. His original intention of cultivating the sword, Yi Xian, was to protect his little sister. His little sister was his original intention, and she was his everything. But gradually, apart from protecting his little sister, he gained other ambitions and desires. For example, invincibility, showing off. Was it wrong? That was right. However, one should not forget one's original intention. He once again thought of what Qing'er had said to him. Only by not forgetting one's original intention could one be invincible. Not forgetting one's original intention. Holding Yi Ling in his arms, Yi Xian smiled again. In that instant just now, he had actually reached the limitless state. My heart is at ease. When one's heart is at ease, it doesn't mean abandoning everything or being heartless, it means not forgetting one's original intention. Meanwhile, Yi Ling spoke softly, "Big brother, I haven't seen you in a long time." Yi Xian roared with laughter, "Haven't you seen me now?" Yi Ling looked up at Yi Xian, "I want to go with you." Yi Xian nodded, "Big brother will take you with me." Yi Ling's eyes lit up when he heard this. "Really?" Yi Xian nodded, "Really? Big brother has the strength to protect you now." Yi Ling wanted to say something but he hesitated. Yi Xian was about to speak when a woman suddenly appeared not too far away from Yi Ling. It was Mu Nianyan. Yi Xian was slightly stunned when he saw Mu Nianyan, and then he smiled, "Big sister Nianyan." Mu Nianyan sized up Yi Xian and then she said, "You're at the limitless state now." Yi Xian spoke solemnly, "Big sister Nianyan, you know about the limitless state?" Mu Nianyan blinked, "Am I very weak in your opinion?" Yi Xian laughed bitterly, "Of course not." He paused for a moment and then he said, "Big sister Nianyan, what realm are you at now?" Mu Nianyan smiled, "How about we exchange a few blows?" Yi Xian immediately said, "All right." He just attained the limitless state and he wanted to find someone to give it a try. Mu Nianyan smiled, opened her palm and then swept it lightly. In an instant, both she and Yi Xian entered a mysterious expanse of space. Yi Xian glanced at the surroundings and then he smiled, "Big sister Nianyan, I'm going to attack." Mu Nianyan nodded, "Bring it on." Yi Xian opened his palm, and then the green profound sword suddenly flew out. At the instant that the green profound sword flew out, this expanse of space was instantly obliterated. The limitless state. After he attained the limitless state he could attack at will even more. It was an extremely ordinary strike, but it possessed the might to destroy the world. Right at this moment, Mu Nianyan's figure suddenly became illusory, and then a sword stabbed into the center of Yi Xian's forehead. Bang! Yi Xian's figure shook violently, and then countless rays of light surged out from within him. Yi Xian was slightly stunned and then he smiled, "Big sister Nianyan, I have the invincible sword physique." His voice suddenly stopped, because he noticed that his body was actually disappearing at an extremely terrifying speed. Yi Xian was stunned. Big sister Nianyan's sword could kill him when he had attained the limitless state? Mu Nianyan suddenly opened his palm, and a ray of sword light flew out of Yi Xian's body. After this ray of sword light flew out, Yi Xian's body gradually returned to normal. Yi Xian said in a low voice, "Big sister Nianyan?" Mu Nianyan retorted, "Do you think you're invincible after attaining the limitless state?" Yi Xian fell silent. Mu Nianyan smiled, "Little guy, you're still very inexperienced." Yi Xian smiled bitterly, "I didn't expect you to be so strong." Mu Nianyan laughed, "The first sword below the three swords. Do you think that's a joke?" Yi Xian fell silent. Mu Nianyan walked to Yi Xian, and then she patted Yi Xian's shoulder lightly, "Walk with me." After saying that, she walked into the distance. Yi Xian hurriedly followed. On the way, Mu Yin suddenly said, "Do you know what's above the limitless state?" Yi Xian's expression froze. Damn, I've just reached the limitless state and now there's something above it? How could he let others live? Seeing Yi Xian's expression, Mu Yin laughed. You little guy. Let's not talk about things above the limitless state, let's talk about the limitless state. Yi Xian nodded. Big sister Yin, go ahead. Mu Yin smiled. How much do you know about the limitless state? Yi Xian smiled bitterly. I've just reached the limitless state, so I don't know much. Mu Yin nodded. You should know that your sister, Tianming, is also considered to have no realm, but do you know the difference between her realm and ours? Yi Xian shook his head. I don't know. Mu Yin smiled and said, she really doesn't have a realm. Yi Xian frowned slightly. What do you mean? Mu Yin chuckled. What I mean is that she has no realm because she's already invincible. She has no realm because she has no opponent. She has truly jumped out of all the rules, and not only that, she has also created her own rules. But this isn't the end. Every time she creates a new rule, it won't take long for her to destroy it. To put it simply, her current enemy is herself. She's constantly creating and then constantly destroying. Yi Xian. Mu Yin smiled and said, these days she has always been making enemies with herself. Her no realm is different from ours. Her no realm means that she is invincible. Yi Xian said solemnly, what about ours? Mu Yin said softly, not having a realm doesn't mean you've jumped out of it. At the very least, you have to create a brand new realm, bind yourself within it, and then finally break through. Yi Xian frowned. Cycle? Mu Yin nodded. Create your own realm and then break through the realm you've created. Every time you create, it represents a brand new you, and every time you break through, it's another metamorphosis. As she spoke, she drew a circle. In the beginning we jumped from one circle to another, but now we have to draw our own circles and then jump out of the circles we've drawn. Simply put, our greatest obstacle and enemy is not others, but ourselves. Yi Xian was silent. Mu Yin smiled. You've reached the inanimate realm, but you've entered a circle drawn by someone else. To put it simply, you're still a circle breaker, but I'm already a circle drawer. As she spoke, she opened her palm, and the azure profound sword appeared in her hand. She casually swung it. The azure profound sword shook violently, and in the next moment, a sword hum rang out. Yi Xian was shocked. Sister Yin, you can use the azure profound sword? Mu Yin knocked Yi Xian's head with the sword and smiled. Don't look down on me, Sister Yin. When I was invincible, you weren't even born. Yi Xian was speechless. P.S. Do you know what a guru is? For example, Potato and Third Young Master, they're outsiders. They don't care about monthly subscriptions, they're already above the web novel circle. As for me, I'm still in the circle, I still need monthly subscriptions and I still need everyone's support, but I don't update much and sometimes I'm even lacking. Everyone, what should I do? How can I become a guru? Chapter 1993. It had to be said that Yi Xian had been dealt a heavy blow. An action realm. After reaching an action realm, he felt that even among the veteran in action realm experts, he would have a place. However, he did not expect that he would lose to Sister Yin so easily. At this moment, Mu Yin said, I divide the cultivators in the world into 3 types. The first type are those in the circle, the second type are those who break the circle, and the third type are those who draw the circle. Yi Xian said in a low voice, I'm a person in the circle now? Mu Yin nodded. Yes, because you haven't created your own realm yet. Once you create your own realm, you will be a person who breaks the circle. Yi Xian hesitated for a moment, then asked, are there many types of circles? In other words, after jumping out of this circle and breaking this circle, there is actually a bigger circle? Mu Yin blinked. What do you think? Yi Xian's face darkened. Isn't this an infinite cycle? Mu Yin chuckled. You're right. Everything in the world is a cycle, such as spring, summer, autumn and winter, birth, aging, sickness and death, flowers blooming and withering. As she spoke, she patted Yi Xian's shoulder lightly. Congratulations on understanding the true meaning of martial arts in advance. However, your realm is not high enough. Even if you understand this, it's useless. Yi Xian was speechless. Mu Yin suddenly said, Yi Ling, let her follow me. Yi Xian was slightly stunned, then asked, why? Mu Yin smiled. I'll tell you later. As for her side, I've already told her. Yi Xian hesitated for a moment, then said, Sister Yin, are you hiding something from me? Mu Yin nodded. Yi Xian quickly asked, What are you hiding from me? Mu Yanyan smiled. I can't tell you. Yi Xian was speechless. Mu Yanyan chuckled and said, I've been to another world. With your current strength there are very few people who can kill you there. However, you are not invincible. Of course, when you get there you have to walk your own path. Yi Xian asked, What about you, Sister Nian? Mu Yanyan smiled and said, I'm taking them somewhere else. Yi Xian was about to ask when Mu Yanyan suddenly said, I want you to meet someone. As she spoke, she turned around and flicked her sleeves. Boom. That space shattered, and within that shattered space Yi Xian saw a woman. The woman wore a snow-white dress and held a long spear in her hand. Was Enlancio. At this moment, Enlancio was in battle with a woman in dark-colored armor. Right at this moment, Mu Yanyan made a grabbing motion with her right hand, and then that expanse of space instantly became illusory. In the next moment, Enlancio walked out from within. Meanwhile, the woman in dark-colored armor gazed at Mu Yanyan, and then she raised her middle finger while her eyes were filled with disdain. Meanwhile, Mu Yanyan raised her hand and slapped her. Slap. The dark-armored woman was sent flying by the slap. The corners of Yi Xian's mouth twitched. Damn it. She really has balls. She actually dared to provoke Sister Nian. In that unknown space-time, the dark-armored woman was stunned by the slap. I actually didn't have the ability to fight back? Mu Yanyan paid no further attention to the woman. She waved her right hand and closed off that expanse of space. Yi Xian glanced at Mu Yanyan. Damn it. That Sister Nian is really ferocious. I have to suck up to her. Mu Yanyan gazed at Enlancio. How do you feel? Enlancio nodded. I'm at the Void Realm. Void Realm. Yi Xian's expression froze. You've also reached the Void Realm? Enlancio glanced at Yi Xian and nodded. Yi Xian. Enlancio smiled. Wenxiu should be reaching it soon. Yi Xian suddenly looked at Mu Yanyan and said seriously, Sister Nian, why don't I follow you in the future? He felt that following Sister Nian would have a bright future. Mu Yanyan laughed. You can't follow me. Yi Xian was puzzled. Why? Mu Yanyan smiled. There's no why. Yi Xian. Mu Yanyan said again, do you want to fight? Yi Xian and Enlancio shook their heads. Enlancio was at the Void Realm and so was he. If the two of them didn't fight to the death, there was no way to determine a victor. And the two of them absolutely couldn't fight to the death. Fighting was meaningless. Mu Yanyan smiled. All right. You guys chat. As soon as she finished speaking, she turned around and vanished. Yi Xian looked at Enlancio and said with a smile, Let's go. Enlancio nodded. The two of them walked towards the depths of the starry sky. Yi Xian suddenly said, What was that place just now? Enlancio shook her head. I don't know either. It was Sister Nian who brought us there. Once we go there we fight. Yi Xian fell silent. Was that place a legendary alternate world? He wasn't sure. Meanwhile, Enlancio spoke softly, We've learned a lot from following Sister Nian. Yi Xian said with a smile, I can see that. He'd left Enlancio and the others behind in the beginning, but Enlancio had already attained the Void Realm. Her speed of improvement was truly swift. Meanwhile, Enlancio suddenly asked, Where are you going next? Yi Xian smiled, Alternate world. Enlancio nodded slightly and then she stopped moving and said, Let's part ways here. Yi Xian suddenly walked over to Enlancio and grabbed her hands. Enlancio gazed at Yi Xian and didn't struggle free. Yi Xian chuckled, You're still so beautiful. Enlancio remained silent. Yi Xian lightly pulled Enlancio into his embrace, yet Enlancio didn't resist. After a short moment she rested her head lightly on Yi Xian's shoulder. The two of them just embraced each other like that. Between them they were friends, lovers and confidants. Enlancio was Yi Xian's first benefactor, and she was the first woman Yi Xian liked. After a long time Enlancio spoke softly, Wait for me to come look for you. Yi Xian smiled, All right. 2 hours later Yi Xian left. He didn't have to worry about Enlancio and Yi Ling following Mu Yanyan. Moreover, it was extremely beneficial to both of them. After Yi Xian left, Mu Yanyan stayed by Enlancio's side. She looked towards the distant horizon and smiled. He's gone? Enlancio nodded. Mu Yanyan smiled. Then it's time for us to go as well. Enlancio looked at Mu Yanyan. Where are we going? Mu Yanyan grinned. To an even more dangerous place. Enlancio hesitated for a moment and then she asked, Big Sister Nian, exactly what level have you attained? Mu Yanyan smiled. Even though I'm not invincible beneath 3 strikes of the sword, no one can kill me. Enlancio was slightly curious. Are there any opponents beneath 3 strikes of the sword? Mu Yin nodded. There are 3. And Lancio asked again, which 3? Mu Yin grinned. One is Miss Tuesday. Her sword Dao doesn't lose to mine. The other is a Valkyrie. This person's martial Dao is godlike. Her strength is stronger than mine. The last one is a little fellow. This fellow isn't human. As far as I know, her current body can only be broken by 3 strikes of the sword. And Lancio hesitated for a moment and then she asked, how far are you from 3 strikes? Mu Yin blinked. I refuse to answer this question. And Lancio, Mu Yin laughed. Let's go. I'll bring you guys to show off. Oh no, I'll bring you guys to train. And Lancio. After Yi Xian arrived at a starry sky, a woman appeared in front of him. Yan Bianshan. Yan Bianshan looked at Yi Xian. Boundless realm? Yi Xian nodded. Yan Bianshan nodded. All right. As she spoke, she glanced at the distance below. That woman just now is very strong. Obviously she was referring to Mu Yin. Yi Xian smiled. I'm Sister Yin. Yan Bianshan glanced at Yi Xian. I'm leaving. Yi Xian asked, to another world? Yan Bianshan nodded. Master is summoning me. A Dao Ling. Yi Xian thought for a moment and then said, then let's go together. Yan Bianshan nodded. All right. As the voice fell, the 2 disappeared at the end of the horizon. After Yi Xian and A Dao Ling left, Nakayama of Silla and Invicil Yi immediately began their seclusion. Actually, the 2 didn't have the confidence to reach Boundless Realm, but they wouldn't choose to give up. The 2 didn't cultivate in Xiaota, so the time they needed was very, very long. In the vast starry sky, Yi Xian and Yan Bianshan tore through space and time. Destination: another world. About 10 hours later, a huge stone door appeared in front of Yi Xian and A Dao Ling. Yi Xian glanced at the stone door and was speechless. Damn, it's always a stone door. Can't there be some iron door or something? At this moment, Yan Bianshan said, we're here. Yi Xian nodded and the 2 walked to the stone door. No one stopped them. Yan Bianshan waved his sleeve and the stone door opened. A white light surged in and drowned the 2. After a moment, Yi Xian opened his eyes. When he opened his eyes, he saw the blue sky and white clouds. A whole new world. At this moment, he suddenly turned his head, and he found that Yan Bianshan had disappeared. Where did this woman go? Yi Xian frowned slightly. He glanced around and with this scan, his divine sense swept out millions of miles. And he didn't find any trace of Yan Bianshan. After a moment of silence, Yi Xian decided to ignore this woman. He glanced into the distance and the corners of his mouth raised slightly. Inanimate realm. The highest realm in this alternate world was only the inanimate realm. And now he was finally no longer the little brother. He had already thought it through. If he couldn't be handsome for 3 days, he wouldn't work hard anymore. He was prepared to be a true second-generation heir and follow Qing every day. Sometimes living off a woman was quite delicious. Yi Xian was about to leave when a dozen people suddenly appeared in front of him. The middle-aged man in the lead sized up Yi Xian and then he grinned. Another one. Yi Xian blinked and then he said, you're not going to rob me, are you? The middle-aged man was slightly stunned, and then he smiled and said, you guessed right, we are going to rob you. Yi Xian flicked the dust off his clothes and then he smiled and said, Xiaota, I'm going to act cool. Tell me, how should I act cool? Should I kill them instantly or should I hold back and pretend that I can't beat them, and then show my strength and scare them to death? Sigh, it's so difficult. Being invincible is so lonely. Xiaota was silent for a moment and then he said, damn. Chapter 1994. Oh. Yi Xian was at a loss. For the first time he felt that being invincible was a form of loneliness. It was the first time he experienced such a deep sense of helplessness. No wonder Big Brother said that being invincible was lonely. At this moment, the middle-aged man in the distance suddenly said, young man, I think you're a smart person. Are you going to hand it over yourself or do we have to do it ourselves? Yi Xian looked at the middle-aged man and smiled, I'm very powerful. The middle-aged man was slightly stunned and then he laughed, powerful? How powerful? Have you reached the inanimate state? Yi Xian nodded and said honestly, yes. The middle-aged man's expression froze, and then he narrowed his eyes. Do I look like an idiot to you? Yi Xian was speechless. He was really speechless. Damn it. It's rare for me to tell the truth, but no one believes me. At this moment, the middle-aged man suddenly grabbed the air, and the space-time where Yi Xian was started to be destroyed. Soulless state. The powerful force kept shattering the space-time around Yi Xian, but Yi Xian was completely fine. Seeing this, the middle-aged man's pupils constricted, and he took a few steps back, his eyes filled with disbelief. How? How is this possible? Yi Xian said seriously, I'm really at the inanimate state. The middle-aged man gulped. Big brother. This is a misunderstanding? His voice was trembling. Yi Xian smiled. I don't think this is a misunderstanding. The middle-aged man knelt down and said with a trembling voice, Big brother, I have parents and children to take care of. Yi Xian shook his head. Bullsh *T. As he spoke, he flicked his sleeve. Boom. The middle-aged man and the others were wiped out. Yi Xian glanced around and then he disappeared on the spot. Soon Yi Xian arrived before an ancient city. The city wasn't big, but it gave off an ancient aura, and it was obvious that it had a long history. After entering the city, Yi Xian looked around. There were not many people in the city. Only a few people passed by occasionally. But here he hadn't even met many Daoless realm experts, much less limitless realm experts. Seeing this scene, he finally heaved a sigh of relief. If he came here and there were boundless realms everywhere, then he really wouldn't be working hard. In that case, what was the point of working hard? After working hard, I still have to take a beating and be the younger brother. How boring. Wasn't it nice to live off a woman? Fortunately, after he came here, the remorseless realm was truly an existence that was as rare as phoenix feathers and Qilin horns. In other words, he could rise now. He could finally act tough. At this moment, a terrifying aura suddenly appeared in the sky above the city. As this terrifying aura appeared, countless people in the city raised their heads to look. Yi Xian also looked up and saw a woman slowly walking over from the horizon. The woman wore a purple dress and had long hair that draped over her shoulders. She held a sword in her right hand. Swordsman. Following the appearance of this woman, someone in the city exclaimed, It's En Lianyun. En Lianyun. As soon as these words were spoken, the city instantly seethed with excitement. En Lianyun wasn't an ordinary person. She was En Baishan's daughter, and who was En Baishan? He was a big shot in the boundless realm. After all, there were only a total of 9 boundless realm experts in this alternate world, and every single one of them was an overlord of an area, a true super big shot. This En Lianyun was definitely a powerful second-generation heir. En Lianyun glanced down from the sky. In the next moment, she flicked her thumb lightly, and a sword slashed down from the sky. The sword was very swift and it slashed directly into a house. Bang! The house was instantly obliterated. Meanwhile, a black figure shot into the sky, and in the blink of an eye, a black-robed man appeared in front of En Lianyun. The black-robed man spoke in a hoarse voice, Missin, why do you have to kill them all? En Lianyun's face was expressionless and she didn't waste her breath at all. She just raised her hand and slashed. A ray of sword light slashed straight at the black-robed man. The black-robed man blocked it with his arm. Bang! The ray of sword light shattered, and then the black-robed man was blasted over 1 kilometer away. After the black-robed man stopped moving, he clenched his right hand towards En Lianyun from afar. Bang! The space above En Lianyun was suddenly torn apart, and then a huge hand that could hold up the heavens stretched out from within that space. Along with the appearance of the hand, the sky above the ancient city instantly became illusory. En Lianyun's face was expressionless. She flicked her thumb lightly, and then the sword in her sheath suddenly shot into the sky. Along with the sound of something tearing, the hand was instantly obliterated. En Lianyun was about to attack again when the black-robed man suddenly smiled. Missin, if we fight here, then everyone in this city will die. En Lianyun frowned when she heard this. Just as the black-robed man had said, if they fought here, then everyone in the city would die. Meanwhile, En Lianyun suddenly looked down. Everyone retreat. Retreat. The people in the city immediately fled towards the outside of the city when they heard En Lianyun. Actually, many people had fled from the city while the two of them were engaged in battle. These people were quite intelligent, and they knew that such a battle would bring disaster to the innocent bystanders. So they'd retreated successively. In the city, Yi Xian was about to leave as well. Even though he wanted to put on a show, he wouldn't take the initiative to look for trouble. He refused to do something so stupid. Right when he was about to leave, the black-robed man suddenly roared with laughter. Missin, you really are benevolent. As soon as he finished speaking, he suddenly vanished on the spot, and he was behind Yi Xian when he appeared once more. He pressed his left hand down onto Yi Xian's shoulder, and then he gazed at En Lianyun. Missin, I'll crush his soul if you attack. I presume that you don't want to see an innocent person die because of you, right? Yi Xian was utterly speechless. En Lianyun frowned while her gaze gradually turned icy cold. However, she didn't attack. The black-robed man smiled. "Missin, you're not related to those women, so why stand out?" And Lian Yun suddenly took a step forward, and then a ray of sword light suddenly flew forward. The black-robed man was shocked, and he hurriedly hid behind Yi Xian. The sword stopped half an inch away from the center of Yi Xian's forehead. The corners of the black-robed man's mouth curled up slightly when he witnessed this scene. And Lian Yun opened her palm and the sword returned to her grasp. She stared fixedly at the black-robed man while the killing intent in her eyes seemed material. Yi Xian glanced at Lian Yun, and he was slightly surprised. This woman is really kind-hearted. Experts who'd attained such a realm usually viewed life as worthless, but this woman was slightly different. Meanwhile, the black-robed man who held onto Yi Xian's shoulder suddenly exerted force. "Young brother, I'll be troubling you to make a trip with me." As soon as he finished speaking, he brought Yi Xian with him as he shot into the sky. And Lian Yun directly transformed into a ray of sword light that vanished into the horizon. In the distant sky, the black-robed man held Yi Xian in his hand as he dashed madly all along the way. Yi Xian suddenly asked, "Where are you taking me?" A trace of surprise flashed through the black-robed man's eyes as he gazed at Yi Xian. "You don't seem to be afraid." Yi Xian thought for a moment and said, "I'm afraid." The black-robed man smiled. "Do you believe in fate?" Yi Xian asked, "What do you mean?" The black-robed man smiled. "Sometimes people are like that. You clearly haven't done anything that's against reason or nature, yet misfortune just happens to descend upon you." As he spoke, he gazed at Yi Xian. "You encountered me today and it's fate." Yi Xian fell silent for a short moment before he said, "You do make a lot of sense." The black-robed man smiled. "We're here." As soon as he finished speaking, he took Yi Xian into a pitch-black hall. And as soon as the two of them entered the hall, the entire hall disappeared into thin air. Yi Xian frowned after they entered the hall. There were many women in the hall, and all of them were completely naked while some had died miserably. Yi Xian's gaze gradually turned icy cold when he witnessed this scene. Meanwhile, the black-robed man gazed at Yi Xian and smiled. "Reincarnate into a good family in your next life." As soon as he finished speaking, he flicked his sleeve and turned around to leave. However, he hadn't even taken 2 steps when he suddenly stopped, and then he turned around to gaze at Yi Xian. Yi Xian was still standing there. The black-robed man's eyes narrowed slightly when he witnessed this scene. "I never expected that I would have misjudged you." As soon as he finished speaking, he suddenly charged forward and smashed his fist towards Yi Xian's face. However, his fist hadn't even come close to Yi Xian when his figure was blasted flying. In the next moment, he was nailed to a wall in the distance by a sword. The black-robed man was stunned, because he hadn't even noticed how Yi Xian had attacked. The black-robed man stared fixedly at Yi Xian. "Who the hell are you?" Yi Xian walked slowly towards the black-robed man and smiled. "Do you know what fate is?" The black-robed man was speechless. Yi Xian grinned and then he waved his right hand lightly. The black-robed man's body was blasted flying piece by piece. Death by 1,000 cuts. The black-robed man's expression changed drastically when he witnessed this scene. "You? What are you trying to do?" Yi Xian stopped and looked directly at the black-robed man. "Why are you asking such a stupid question?" The black-robed man spoke ferociously. "I'm from the Ghost Cultivator sect." Yi Xian frowned slightly. "I've never heard of it." The black-robed man was stunned and then he spoke angrily. "You've actually never heard of the Ghost Cultivator sect?" Yi Xian suddenly said, "My younger sister is Invincible Tianming, my older brother is Defeat Swordsman, and my father is Madman Yang. Have you heard of them?" The black-robed man was stunned and then he said, "What the hell?" Yi Xian spoke furiously. "You've actually never heard of them?" As he spoke, he flicked his sleeve, and a strand of sword light slapped against the black-robed man's soul. Itch. A shrill and miserable cry suddenly resounded. A short while later, the black-robed man glared angrily at Yi Xian with a ferocious expression. "Do you dare to ask me to call for help? Do you dare? Do you dare?" Yi Xian blinked, and then he opened his palm and a chair appeared before him. He sat on the chair with one leg crossed over the other, and then he smiled. "Come, call out the strongest member of your Ghost Cultivator sect. I'm invincible and your Ghost Cultivator sect can do as you please. P.S. Asking for votes." Chapter 1995. The black-robed man was first stunned when he heard Yi Xian, and then his expression gradually became solemn. He didn't underestimate Yi Xian at all, because he couldn't even fight back against Yi Xian, so how could he dare underestimate Yi Xian? However, he had no other choice but to call for reinforcements. If he didn't, then he would definitely die, but if he did, then he might have a chance at survival. This young man can't be at the inaction realm, right? When he thought up to this point, the black-robed man opened his palm. A black talisman suddenly floated up into the air, and then it transformed into a ray of black light that vanished from the hall. The black-robed man gazed at Yi Xian. Sir, my ghost cultivation sect has 3 half-step inaction realm experts. Half-step inaction realm experts. Yi Xian smiled. It's fine. The black-robed man's face fell when he heard this. A short moment later, an old man appeared within the hall. The old man wore a red robe and he seemed very coquettish. After the red-robed old man appeared within the hall, he sized up Yi Xian, and then he spoke in a hoarse voice. May I know who you are? Yi Xian opened his palm and a ray of light suddenly flew out. The red-robed old man didn't even have time to react before the ray of light pierced through his forehead. His soul was obliterated. The black-robed man behind the red-robed old man was stunned by this scene. After all, the red-robed old man was at the half-step inaction realm. He was instantly killed just like that? Could he really be at the inaction realm? The black-robed man's body started to tremble when he thought up to this point. Yi Xian suddenly smiled. Come on, continue calling for reinforcements. The black-robed man spoke with a trembling voice. Sir, please show mercy. At this moment he'd completely sobered up. The man before him wasn't someone the ghost cultivation sect could afford to offend. Yi Xian shook his head. How boring. As soon as he finished speaking, he flicked his sleeve. Bang. The black-robed man was instantly annihilated. Yi Xian turned around and left. Not long after he walked out of the hall, a ray of light suddenly descended in front of him. Was in Lianyun. And Lianyun glanced at the hall and then looked at Yi Xian without saying anything. Yi Xian smiled. He's dead. And Lianyun asked, You killed him? Yi Xian nodded. After a moment of silence, and Lianyun nodded slightly and didn't say anything else. She turned around and disappeared into the horizon. Yi Xian looked at the sky and shook his head with a smile. This chick has quite a character. At this moment, a woman suddenly appeared in front of Yi Xian. Seeing who it was, Yi Xian was stunned. An acquaintance. Dao Ling. Dao Ling looked at Yi Xian and smiled. What? Don't you recognize me? Yi Xian was speechless. Dao Ling smiled. Let's go, I'll bring you somewhere. With that, she disappeared with Yi Xian. A moment later, Yi Xian followed Dao Ling to the depths of a mountain range. In the depths of this mountain range there was a very large palace. The palace occupied a mountain peak, and white light streaked across from time to time above the palace. Dao Ling brought Yi Xian to the front of a hall. Dao Ling smiled. This is a force I created. It's called Dao Ling Palace. From now on you'll be a member of Dao Ling Palace. Yi Xian was speechless. Dao Ling opened her palm, and a storage ring appeared in front of Yi Xian. In the storage ring, there's a special crystal called Infinite God Crystal. It can be used for healing and cultivation. It's a special crystal exclusive to inaction realm experts. I don't have many, so I'll give you 10,000 first. Use it sparingly. Yi Xian didn't stand on ceremony and put away the storage ring. Once he reached the inaction realm, he realized that the God vein crystals he had were too useless. Dao Ling took out an ancient book and handed it to Yi Xian. This is the information about the major forces. There's also detailed information about those inaction realm experts. You can take a look. With that, she pointed to a small hall not far to the right. That's where you live. Rest for a few days. After a few days, I'll need your help. Having said that, she had already disappeared. Yi Xian shook his head with a smile. This sister he recognized wasn't polite at all. Without thinking too much, he picked up the ancient book and went to his small hall. After entering the small hall, Yi Xian opened the ancient book. As soon as he opened it, it turned into a white light and sank into his brow. At the same time, countless information surged into his mind. Alternate world. This alternate world was a mysterious world. It should be said that it was a relic in itself. A very, very ancient relic. And the first person to discover it was Mu Shen. He was the first known person to reach inaction realm, and he was also known as the strongest expert in the alternate world. He was ranked first in terms of strength. In this alternate world there were 3 super forces. One of them was Dao Ling Palace. Aside from Dao Ling Palace, there was also Mind Pavilion and the mysterious 10,000 Dao sect. These 3 super forces all had inaction realm experts behind them. Before he and Yan Bianshan came, there were only 9 inaction realm experts in the entire alternate world. But not long ago one of them suddenly died. Now, there were only 8 inaction realm experts left in the alternate world. Of course, there were only 10 now because he and Yen Bianshan had come. There were battles in the alternate world, but inaction realm experts rarely fought. Thus, although there were many conflicts between the 3 super forces, there were very few real battles. A moment later, Yi Xian opened his eyes and softly said, Mu Shen. Mu Shen's origin was very mysterious. No one knew where he came from. They only knew that he was the first to discover this alternate world and the infinite God crystal. After he came to the alternate world, he did not occupy it. Thus, more and more people came to the alternate world. Now no one knew where Mu Shen had gone. A moment later, Yi Xian withdrew his thoughts. He opened his palm and the mysterious green sword appeared in his hand. After reaching the inaction realm, he felt that the mysterious green sword was different. Just as Dao Ling had said, the mysterious green sword had other functions. As if he had thought of something, Yi Xian directly entered the Xiaota. Inside the Xiaota, Yi Xian looked at the mysterious green sword in his hand. A moment later, the mysterious green sword suddenly turned into a ray of sword light and entered his brow. Boom. As the mysterious green sword entered his brow, his aura instantly increased like crazy. At this moment, an illusory sword appeared above his head. It was the mysterious green sword. Sword and person fused. The corners of Yi Xian's mouth curled up slightly. He could now fuse with the mysterious green sword. After fusing with the mysterious green sword, his strength would increase by several fold. He could not use this move before because he was weak and could not withstand the power of the mysterious green sword. But now he could withstand the powerful strength of the mysterious green sword. In fact, he realized that the mysterious green sword was a huge treasure trove. However, he had to slowly dig it out himself. After studying for a few days, he did not discover anything new. Yi Xian stopped studying and went to Shuang. Shuang was like Yen Peishan before. He had no aura and had already entered meditation. Seeing this, the corners of Yi Xian's mouth curled up slightly. It was only a matter of time before Shuang reached the inaction realm. 3 days later, Dao Ling came to Yi Xian's room. Yi Xian left the Xiaota. Dao Ling sized up Yi Xian and smiled. How do you feel after reaching the inaction realm? Yi Xian smiled. Invincible. Dao Ling laughed. You little guy. Yi Xian suddenly asked, Sister Ling, what kind of person is Mu Shen? Dao Ling smiled. Curious about him? Yi Xian nodded. Dao Ling shook her head. I've never seen him either. Yi Xian was slightly stunned. You've never seen him either? Dao Ling nodded. I've never seen him. He's a legend in the eyes of us inaction realm experts. Yi Xian fell silent. Dao Ling looked at Yi Xian and smiled. Do you know what we've been doing every day after reaching the inaction realm? Yi Xian shook his head. I don't know. Dao Ling smiled. We're thinking about how to improve further. Yi Xian asked, What's above the inaction realm? Dao Ling shook her head. I don't know. In our opinion, Mu Shen is the most likely person to break through to the inaction realm. However, no one knows where he is now. Speaking of this, she changed the topic. What about your sister? Yi Xian was slightly struck dumb. Then he said with a smile, Which sister? Dao Ling glared at Yi Xian. Are you playing dumb with me? Yi Xian felt helpless. To be honest, I have quite a lot of sisters. Dao Ling looked at Yi Xian. The one who's the best at fighting. Yi Xian was speechless. Dao Ling said, When she helped you kill Chidi's clone, she used his clone to kill Chidi's main body. Yi Xian frowned slightly. Is it that Chidi who suddenly fell not long ago? Dao Ling nodded. That's him. His clone went to the Dao boundary to target you. However, his clone didn't come back. Not only did it not come back, but his main body was also killed by a sword. Ching. Yi Xian was silent for a moment. Ching. Amazing, killing the clone and destroying the main body. That was an inaction realm expert. Could it be played like this? Dao Ling smiled. Looks like you don't know much about her strength. Yi Xian nodded honestly. Qing'er's strength was really unknown. To put it simply, don't ask how strong Qing'er was. Ask if she was invincible. Dao Ling said in a low voice, So you don't know where she is? Yi Xian nodded. Dao Ling was silent. Yi Xian looked at Dao Ling, What do you want to do? Dao Ling smiled. I want to see her. If she's willing to give me some pointers or give me a direction, then I can save many years of hard work. Yi Xian was helpless. I really don't know where she is. Dao Ling nodded. I believe you. There are 2 things I need your help with. First, I want to bring Bao Shan to a place. After we leave, you'll be in charge here. We'll be recruiting soon and you need to be in charge of it. I'll come back to pick you up in about half a month. Yi Xian was curious. Where are you going? Dao Ling smiled. A mysterious place. Yi Xian hesitated for a moment. Then he said, shall I recruit people? Dao Ling blinked. Is there a problem? Yi Xian thought for a while. Then he said, no problem. Dao Ling nodded. Also, I've already destroyed the Ghost Cultivator sect. She looked at Yi Xian. Try not to attack in the future. Understand? Yi Xian didn't understand. Why? Dao Ling rolled her eyes at Yi Xian. Brother, you're in the nothingness realm now. You're one of the most powerful people in the world. If you make a move, you'll be bullying the weak. Yi Xian was speechless. Chapter 1996. Bullying the weak. Yi Xian's expression became somewhat strange. There was actually a day when he would bully the weak. This feeling was really strange. A moment later, Dao Ling left with Yan Bianshan. Now Yi Xian was in charge of Dao Ling country. Yi Xian arrived at a large hall. This was the main hall of Dao Ling Palace. All the elders of Dao Ling Palace had gathered in the hall. When they saw Yi Xian enter, all the elders' gazes fell on him. Yi Xian glanced at them. Sister Ling told me that I will be in charge of everything in Dao Ling Palace from now on. Everyone looked at him and did not speak. Yi Xian said with a smile, can anyone tell me about this recruitment? At this moment, a black-robed old man stood out and bowed slightly. Elder Yi, this recruitment is actually to snatch people. Yi Xian frowned slightly. Snatch people? The black-robed old man nodded. Because every 10 years, Dao Ling Palace, Mind Pavilion, and Myriad Dao Sect will recruit people at the same time. Our target is those who have forced their way up from the world below. These people are definitely the best in their world if they are able to come up from the world below. However, there are very few who can come up. Because of this, every recruitment has to rely on snatching people. Yi Xian asked, can they fight? The black-robed old man glanced at Yi Xian. It depends. Yi Xian thought about it and said, I understand. As he spoke, he looked at the black-robed old man. What's your name? The black-robed old man said, Li Jing. Yi Xian nodded slightly. Elder Li Jing, did Sister Ling tell you about me? Li Jing hesitated for a moment and said, no. The palace lord only said that we should listen to your orders and that seeing you is like seeing her. She didn't say anything else. Yi Xian smiled. I understand. Li Jing said, Elder Yi, if there are no other questions, then we can set off for Thousand Seal Mountain. Yi Xian nodded and stood up. Let's go. A moment later, Yi Xian left the Daoling Palace with more than 10 elders. Wanfeng Mountain. Thousand Seal Mountain was a special place. Every year, people from the next world would appear here. This was because this was the only passageway opened by the other world to the world below. If he wanted to come up, he had to pass through here. Unless you've reached the inaction realm. For example, Yi Xian and Yan Bianshan, when the two of them came up, they directly tore through time and space to come up. Under Li Jing's lead, Yi Xian and the others came to the top of a mountain. Looking down from the top of the mountain, they could see all the small mountains. At this moment, a group of people had already gathered on the mountain peak. Li Jing looked to the right. There were more than 10 people standing there, and the one in the lead was an old man. The old man had white hair and his gaze was piercing. He exuded an oppressive aura. Half-step empty realm. At this moment, Yi Xian suddenly said, the 10,000 Dao Sect's Wan Xinghan is an old fellow with a very bad temper. Elder Yi, you have to be careful. Yi Xian nodded slightly. Okay. With that, he looked to the other side. There were more than a dozen people there, and the one in the lead was a woman. He knew this woman was Lian Yun. As if sensing Yi Xian's gaze, and Lian Yun also looked at him, but she quickly withdrew her gaze. Beside Yi Xian, Li Jing said in a deep voice, this is Miss N. She is known as the #1 swordsman in the other world below the inaction realm. She is also the young sect master of the Fang Inch sect. Her father, Beishan, is an inaction realm expert. Of course, aside from her father, she herself is extremely strong and cannot be underestimated. Yi Xian nodded slightly. He looked down at the mountains. Tell me about the recruitment process. Li Jing said, if there is someone you value, Elder Yi can offer some tempting conditions for them to join us. Yi Xian smiled. So, not only are we picking people but they are also picking us, right? Li Jing nodded. Anyone who can come up here has the capital. Yi Xian nodded slightly. The cultivation below was much more difficult than here, and those who could come up here were definitely the best of the best. Just at this moment, the space not far away from them suddenly trembled. At this moment, Wan Xinghan from the 10,000 Dao sect suddenly said, "Since the people from the Dao Spirit Palace have arrived, then let's open the passage." With that, he looked at Lianyun in the distance. "Missin, is there any problem?" And Lianyun shook her head. "No." Wan Xinghan nodded slightly. "Then let's begin." He didn't ask Yi Xian. He directly ignored Yi Xian. Yi Xian looked at Li Jing. "Are we not on good terms with the 10,000 Dao sect?" Li Jing nodded. "There is indeed a bit of discord. Because last time we robbed them and it wasn't 1 but 5. Last time they only managed to find 2, which was the lowest number they've ever found." Yi Xian smiled. "I understand." With that, he got up and walked toward Lianyun. Seeing this, everyone was startled. What was this guy going to do? Yi Xian arrived before Lianyun and smiled. "Missin, we meet again." And Lianyun looked at Yi Xian. "Are you from the Dao Spirit Palace?" Yi Xian nodded. "The palace master of the Dao Spirit Palace is my big sister." And Lianyun was about to speak, but at this moment Wan Xinghan sneered. "So you relied on your relationship." With that, he looked at Li Jing not far away. "Li Jing, this old man really feels bad for you. You are a half-step indestructible realm expert, but you have to submit to a brat. It's really not worth it. You might as well come to my 10,000 Dao sect. At the very least you won't be buried." Li Jing faintly smiled. "Old man Wan, is there any point in trying to sow discord?" Wan Xinghan smiled and didn't speak anymore. Yi Xian didn't care about Wan Xinghan. He directly moved his chair to Lianyun's side and sat down. His actions stunned everyone present. What was going on? Li Jing and the other experts of the Dao Spirit Palace were also stunned. What was he going to do? And Lianyun looked at Yi Xian. "What are you doing?" Yi Xian smiled. "Nothing, I just want to chat with Missin." And Lianyun, at this moment, an elder of the Fangxian sect beside Lianyun said, "Sir, you are from the Dao Spirit Palace. Your territory is over there." With that, he pointed in the direction of Li Jing and the others. Yi Xian smiled. "Missin and I are friends." The elder of the Fangxian sect looked at Lianyun. And Lianyun was speechless. Yi Xian suddenly smiled. "Missin, I have a sword here. Take a look." As he spoke, he withdrew the green profound sword and passed it to Lianyun. And Lianyun's pupils constricted when she saw the green profound sword. What sword is this?" Yi Xian smiled. "This sword is called the green profound sword and it's my sword." And Lianyun gazed at Yi Xian. "You're a swordsman?" Yi Xian nodded. "Yes." And Lianyun hesitated for a moment and said, "Can I take a closer look at it?" Yi Xian smiled, "Of course." And Lianyun nodded slightly. "Thank you." As she spoke, she picked up the green profound sword, and her expression gradually grew more and more solemn. Obviously, she'd sensed how extraordinary the green profound sword was. Wan Xinghan glanced coldly at Yi Xian with a hostile expression. A short moment later, and Lianyun gazed at Yi Xian with an extremely solemn expression. "Young Master Yi, who forged this sword?" Yi Xian smiled. "My younger sister." And Lianyun was slightly stunned. "Your younger sister?" Yi Xian nodded. "Yes." And Lianyun glanced at Yi Xian. "This sword is very special, and there's probably no sword in the entire alternate world that can compare to it." Yi Xian smiled. "Lianyun, I still have some sword techniques. Why don't we discuss the sword Dao by ourselves once this round is over?" And Lianyun hesitated for a moment before she said, "All right." The elder of the core sect frowned when he heard Lianyun, and then he glanced at Yi Xian with a trace of vigilance in his eyes. "Damn it. What's this young man trying to do?" Meanwhile, Yi Xian suddenly asked, "Lianyun, how many geniuses are coming this time?" And Lianyun glanced at Yi Xian. "Young Master Yi, just call me Missin." Yi Xian nodded. "All right, Lianyun." And Lianyun's expression froze when she heard this. The elder of the core sect by Lianyun's side was dumbstruck. What the fuck? Is he really that shameless? He already told you to call her Missin. You even called her Lianyun. Damn it. Are we very close? Meanwhile, Yi Xian suddenly asked, "Lianyun, how many geniuses are coming this time?" And Lianyun glanced at Yi Xian. 20. Yi Xian nodded. "All right. Your core sect will get 10 and my Dao Ling Palace will get 10. Perfect." And Lianyun was speechless. Meanwhile, Wan Xinghan suddenly roared with laughter. "How laughable. What? Does your Dao Ling Palace want my myriad Dao Palace to not get a single person this time?" Yi Xian glanced at Wan Xinghan and smiled. "Do you have any questions?" Wan Xinghan looked at Yi Xian. "No questions, absolutely no questions. Your name is Yi Xian, right?" Good, I'll watch and see how you will make it so my 10,000 Dao sect doesn't get a single one. Yi Xian smiled. How about this? We'll let Miss in first and after she gets 10 we'll start. What do you think? Hearing this, Wan Xinghan frowned. And Lian Yun looked at Yi Xian, and there was a flash of surprise in her eyes. The elder of the core sect was also startled. He didn't expect Yi Xian to suggest letting the core sect collect first. Wasn't this letting the core sect get a bargain for nothing? If the Dao Ling Palace and the 10,000 Dao sect didn't fight for the first 10, then the core sect would be getting a bargain for nothing. The old man looked at Yi Xian. At this moment, he suddenly found that Yi Xian was a bit more pleasing to the eye. Across from Yi Xian, Wan Xinghan's expression was extremely ugly. If he agreed, wouldn't he be letting the core sect get a bargain? If he didn't agree, wouldn't he be offending the core sect? Thinking about this, Wan Xinghan's eyes narrowed. Only now did he realize that he had been tricked by this bastard. Wan Xinghan seemed to have thought of something and suddenly smiled. Young Master Yi, can I ask you a question? Yi Xian was about to speak when Wan Xinghan suddenly said, Are you here to recruit people or pick up girls? Everyone? P.S. Who does everyone want to see more of? I'm about to write an article about the Milky Way galaxy. Chapter 1997. Was he here to recruit people or to pick up girls? As soon as these words were spoken, the atmosphere instantly became strange. And Lian Yun's expression became a little strange. Li Jing and the others at the side also looked a little strange. They actually didn't know anything about Yi Xian, but because of Dao Ling they still respected Yi Xian. Because they believed in Dao Ling. But they didn't expect that Yi Xian would directly give 10 geniuses to the square-inch sect. If they gave 10 spots to the Fang Xiyuan sect, that meant the Dao Spirit Palace would have to fight the 10,000 Dao sect for the other 10 spots. In other words, Dao Ling Palace might end up with only 5 geniuses or even fewer. As Wan Xinghan had said, was this guy here to recruit people or to pick up girls? Just at this moment Yi Xian suddenly smiled. I'm willing to give 10 spots to Lady Lian Yun. As for whether your 10,000 Dao sect gives up, that's your own business. Wan Xinghan's eyes narrowed when he heard Yi Xian's words, and a cold light flashed in the depths of his eyes. Yi Xian had kicked the ball back to him. If he didn't give in, he would offend the Fang Xiyuan sect. If he gave in, it would mean that the 10,000 Dao sect would have to compete with the Dao Ling Palace for the 10 spots. What to do? Wan Xinghan suddenly fell into a dilemma. Beside Yi Xian, and Lian Yun said solemnly, If you do this, how are you going to explain to your sister, Palace Lord Dao Ling? Yi Xian smiled and said, Are you worried about me? And Lian Yun's expression froze. Right at this moment, the space in the distant horizon suddenly split apart, and then a man walked in. As soon as the man appeared, everyone's gazes descended onto him. The peak of the Daoless realm. Moreover, his aura was thick and vigorous. It was obvious that there was nothing fake about it. Most importantly, this person was not old. In other words, he had a bright future ahead of him. In an instant, the expressions of everyone here burned with desire, including Li Jing and the others behind Yi Xian. What was the most important thing in this alternate world? An inaction realm elite. Apart from inaction realm? Of course they were monsters and geniuses. Simply put, they were talented people. If a superpower wanted to prosper for a long time to come, it needed new blood. After the man appeared, he glanced at the surroundings with a trace of vigilance in his eyes. Meanwhile, an old man appeared in front of him, and the old man spoke a few words in a low voice. A short moment later the old man gazed at Yi Xian and the others. Yi Xian looked at Lian Yun and said with a smile, Are you still not going to accept it? And Lian Yun hesitated for a moment, and then she turned to look at the old man by her side. Uncle N glanced at Yi Xian, and then he appeared in front of the man and started talking with him in a low voice. Wan Xinghan was about to make a move when he witnessed this scene. Meanwhile, Uncle N suddenly gazed at Wan Xinghan, and he just gazed at Wan Xinghan without saying anything. Wan Xinghan's expression immediately turned ugly. The other party's intentions were clear. The Dao Ling Palace had already given them face. If the Myriad Dao Palace did not give them face, then they would become enemies. Wan Xinghan was hesitant. Meanwhile, an old man by his side spoke in a low voice, Grand Elder, the Dao Ling Palace intends to rope in the core sect. Wan Xinghan glanced at Yi Xian, and his gaze grew even colder. In the end, he didn't choose to seize the man. Thus, the core sect accepted the man without any problems. After he accepted the man, Uncle N instantly revealed a brilliant smile, and then he cupped his fists to Yi Xian and Wan Xinghan. Thank you. Thank you. Yi Xian grinned, We're all on the same side. There's no need to be so polite. Uncle Lin glanced at Yi Xian. Even though he still had a smile on his face, there was a trace of vigilance in his heart. This fellow might be targeting in Lianyun. On the other side, Wan Xinghan's expression was unsightly to the extreme. He'd been staring at Yi Xian since the beginning, and his gaze was like a sword that seemed like it intended to crush Yi Xian into pieces. But Yi Xian didn't even pay attention to him. At this moment, Li Jing, who stood beside Yi Xian, spoke in a low voice. "Elder Yi, are you really going to let 10 people go to the core sect?" Yi Xian nodded. Li Jing smiled bitterly. "Elder Yi, these people are related to the future strength of our Daoling Palace. Yi Xian smiled. "If anything happens, I'll bear it." Li Jing wanted to say something, but he stopped. At this moment, an old man behind him spoke in a low voice. "Elder Yi, I'm afraid you can't bear it." Yi Xian looked at the old man. "Do you have a problem?" The old man spoke in a low voice. "Elder Yi, these people are true geniuses. As long as they have enough resources, they might be able to reach the half-step inaction realm in the future. If an inaction realm expert doesn't act, the half-step inaction realm expert can decide the fate of a force. If you let 10 people go, it means that we might have a few less half-step inaction realm experts than others in the future. This is a huge loss for our Daoling Palace." As he spoke, he cupped his fists. "I don't mean to be disrespectful to Elder Yi. I'm just stating the facts." Yi Xian nodded and smiled. "What's your name, Elder?" The old man glanced at Yi Xian. "Emo Shan." Yi Xian smiled. "Elder Emo Shan, do you believe in Sister Ling?" Emo Shan said in a low voice. "Of course." Yi Xian smiled slightly. "She believes in me." Emo Shan was slightly stunned, and then he cupped his fists. "I understand." Yi Xian nodded, and then he looked towards the distant horizon. The space-time there split again, and in the next moment another person walked out. When Uncle Lin from the core sect saw this, he hurriedly rushed over. Wan Xinghan's expression grew even more unsightly when he saw this scene. Yi Xian smiled but didn't speak. Soon, Uncle Lin successfully accepted that person. Next, more monstrous geniuses appeared, and it had to be said that they were all very outstanding. The weakest among them was at the Daoless realm. These people's Daoless realm were the kind that didn't have the slightest bit of exaggeration. To the 3 factions they were the best seedlings. As long as they were given enough cultivation resources, they could create surprises for you. Seeing those monstrous geniuses accepted by the core sect made the eyes of the people from the 10,000 Dao sect in Daoling Palace go red. Yi Xian, who was in the lead, had a very calm expression. Every time the core sect accepted someone, he would get up and congratulate them. His smile was very sincere, as if he was a part of the core sect. Wan Xinghan's expression returned to normal. Not only that, but he also congratulated the core sect like Yi Xian. Just like this, it didn't take long for the core sect to accept 10 super geniuses. The atmosphere in the surroundings suddenly became tense, because everyone knew that the show was about to begin. At this moment, another man walked out from the distant horizon. Another super genius. Just like before, he was also at the Daoless realm. Uncle An's eyes narrowed slightly, and no one knew what he was thinking. At this moment, Lianyun suddenly said, "Enough." "Enough." Uncle An hesitated for a moment and then smiled bitterly. "I understand." He knew that the core sect had profited greatly. If they continued to be greedy, then something bad might happen. The 10,000 Dao sect in Daoling Palace weren't idiots. In the distance, Wan Xinghan suddenly appeared before the man and smiled. "I'm an elder of the 10,000 Dao sect. Are you willing to join my 10,000 Dao sect?" The man was about to speak. Right at this moment, Yi Xian suddenly flicked his finger, and a storage ring fell in front of the man. Yi Xian smiled and said, "This is just a small token of my appreciation." The man took a look and his expression changed in the next second. There were 1 billion God Supreme crystals in the storage ring. 1 billion. Even though the Divine Supreme Crystal was no longer useful to Limitless Realm cultivators, it was still very useful to those below Limitless Realm. A wisp of disdain appeared on the corner of Wan Xinghan's mouth. "Are you going to compete in money?" He waved his hand and a storage ring appeared before the man. There were 2 billion God-grade crystals within the storage ring. The Myriad Dao Palace had very few infinite God-grade crystals, but they didn't need too many God-grade crystals. Suddenly Yi Xian smiled, and then a ray of white light entered the center of the man's forehead. Bang! The man's body trembled slightly. A moment later he suddenly opened his eyes, and his body was trembling. Wan Xinghan frowned slightly and he was about to say something when the man walked over to Yi Xian and bowed deeply. I'm willing to join your sect. Everyone was stunned. What did Yi Xian give him? Yi Xian smiled. What's your name? The man replied, Gu Yunqing. Yi Xian nodded. Come behind me. Gu Yunqing hurriedly walked respectfully behind Yi Xian. Everyone was stunned when they saw this. Wan Xinghan stared at Yi Xian as if he wanted to see through Yi Xian. Everyone was puzzled. They were wondering what Yi Xian had given Gu Yunqing to make him choose the Tao Spirit Palace so eagerly. Yi Xian looked at them and shook his head with a smile. In truth, he knew what these Taoist realm experts were thinking. Did they care about resources? Of course they did, but they cared more about how to reach the Taoist realm. He'd given Gu Yunqing Dao Ling's Taoist realm inheritance, but he hadn't given him all of it. He'd only given him half, and that was enough. And Taoist realm inheritance. Taoist realm experts would go crazy. The 10,000 Tao sect had Taoist realm experts as well, but those Taoist realm experts would definitely not casually give away in Taoist realm inheritance. After all, Dao Ling had only given him and Yan Bianshan. Just at this moment, space in the distance split open once more, and then a black-robed man walked out. As soon as he walked out, Yi Xian pointed forward and a ray of white light entered the black-robed man's forehead. A moment later, the black-robed man's pupils shrank, and he walked directly towards Yi Xian. At this moment, Wan Xinghan quickly appeared before the black-robed man. He opened his palm and a storage ring appeared before the black-robed man. There were 3 billion extreme heaven crystals within it. Wan Xinghan looked at the black-robed man. Join my 10,000 Tao sect and all of this is yours. The black-robed man looked at Wan Xinghan like he was looking at an idiot, and then he walked directly towards Yi Xian. Wan Xinghan's expression became extremely unsightly, and then he suddenly turned to look at Yi Xian. You cheated. Yi Xian was stunned and then he smiled. Are you a sore loser? Wan Xinghan stared fixedly at Yi Xian. I challenge you. Yi Xian spoke solemnly. I'm only at the Taoist realm. A half-step Taoist realm cultivator like you is actually challenging a Taoist realm cultivator? Do you even have any shame? To outsiders, his current cultivation was the Taoist realm because he'd concealed it. Wan Xinghan spoke coldly. Don't worry, this old man won't take advantage of you. This old man will lower his cultivation to fight you. Do you dare? Chapter 1998. Lowering one's cultivation. Hearing Wan Xinghan's words, Li Jing, who was beside Yi Xian, immediately stepped forward. He looked coldly at Wan Xinghan. Old man Wan, is your 10,000 Tao sect a sore loser? Wan Xinghan said angrily. Li Jing, shut up the old man. Your Dao Ling palace is obviously cheating. Cheating? Li Jing sneered. I think you're just a sore loser. As he spoke, he slowly clenched his right hand. Wan Xinghan wasn't willing to show weakness, and a powerful aura swept out from his body. For a time, both sides were at daggers drawn, and a battle was about to erupt. At this moment, Yi Xian suddenly smiled. Elder Wan, you said that my Dao Ling palace cheated. Do you have any proof? Wan Xinghan looked at Yi Xian. The old man doesn't need proof. Yi Xian was stunned and then he smiled. So you're saying that you're going to eat my Dao Ling palace? Wan Xinghan looked coldly at Yi Xian. Don't give the old man these fancy tricks. The old man won't fall for it. On the other side, Uncle N glanced at Yi Xian and then he said, Lianyun, this little fellow is really showy. Moreover, he's approaching you on purpose, so he definitely has ulterior motives. You have to be careful. And Lianyun? In the distance, Wan Xinghan said, Elder Yi, let's not talk about anything else. The old man has lowered his cultivation to challenge you. Do you dare to accept? Yi Xian was about to speak when Li Jing said, I accept. Wan Xinghan glanced at Yi Xian. How about this? The old man will lower his cultivation to the soulless realm, which is one realm lower than yours. Do you dare? Yi Xian was about to speak when Li Jing quickly said, Elder Yi, you must not agree. Although this person has lowered his cultivation, his combat awareness is at the half-step indiscernible realm. Moreover, he clearly wants to kill you. If you agree. Yi Xian suddenly said loudly, Of course I can't agree. He's at the half-step indestructible realm, while I'm only at the Taoist realm. How can I agree to him? I'm not stupid. Hearing this, Li Jing's expression froze. However, he was relieved in his heart. Although this guy didn't look very reliable, his brain was still very flexible. Hearing Yi Xian's words, the distant Wan Xinghan's expression instantly turned cold. Why are you so cowardly? Yi Xian said with a straight face, You're a half-step indestructible realm expert. Aren't you embarrassed to challenge me, a Taoist realm expert? Wan Xinghan said angrily, The old man has already said that he will lower himself by 2 cultivation levels, 1 cultivation level lower than yours. Do you still not dare? Yi Xian said seriously, if you have the ability then lower yourself to the heartless realm. Heartless state. As soon as these words were spoken, the expressions of everyone in the surroundings became strange. These words were too shameless. Actually, dropping 2 realms was already very interesting. And lowering himself to the heartless state. That was a little too much. Right at this moment, Wan Xinghan suddenly said, the old man will lower himself to the heartless realm. Everyone looked at Wan Xinghan. This old man was obviously infuriated to the point that his mind wasn't normal. An old man from the 10,000 Dao sect hesitated for a moment before he said, Head Elder, lowering yourself to the heartless realm. That's too risky. Wan Xinghan's face was expressionless. Do you think this fellow cultivated to the Daoless realm by himself? The old man glanced at Yi Xian, and he hesitated for a moment before he said, It doesn't seem like it. This Yi Xian is so flashy. It's obvious that he's relied on external forces to reach the Daoless realm. Wan Xinghan suddenly said, Elder Yi, it's too boring to compete like this. How about we increase the stakes? Increase the stakes. Yi Xian smiled and said, What stakes? Wan Xinghan looked at Yi Xian and said, Whoever loses will withdraw from today's recruitment. What do you think? The expressions of Li Jing and the others beside Yi Xian changed greatly, and Li Jing immediately said, No. Absolutely not. In the distance, Wan Xinghan smiled and said, Elder Yi, are you the one in charge or is Elder Li Jing the one in charge? Li Jing said solemnly, Old man Wan, don't try to sow discord like this. With that, he looked at Yi Xian and said, Elder Yi, this matter concerns the future of my Daoling palace. We can't be careless. Yi Xian was silent for a moment before he said, He has already lowered himself to the heartless realm. If I still don't agree, how will others look at me? Li Jing's expression froze. Yi Xian looked at Wan Xinghan and smiled. Elder Wan, I agree to your conditions. He agreed. The faces of Li Jing and the other cultivators of Daoling Palace darkened. On the other side, Uncle An shook his head. This guy is still too young. Although Wan Xinghan has a bad temper, it doesn't mean that he's brainless. Since he dares to lower himself to the heartless realm, it means that he has absolute confidence. And this little guy. With that, he shook his head again. What a rash fool. And Lian Yun glanced at Yi Xian and did not speak. At this moment, Yi Xian suddenly said, Elder Wan, should we stop here or? Wan Xinghan said calmly, Since it's a fight, there will definitely be injuries and deaths. This is normal. What do you think? Yi Xian nodded and turned to look at Li Jing and the others from Daoling Palace. Remember, if I die, Daoling Palace must not take revenge. My Daoling Palace can afford to lose. With that, he looked at Wan Xinghan. Wan Xinghan smiled faintly. Listen up, myriad Daoling Palace. If I die, you must not take revenge. With that, he looked at Yi Xian. Is that okay? Yi Xian nodded. Can we begin? Wan Xinghan opened his palm and pressed down lightly. Soon, his realm was directly suppressed to the heartless realm. Wan Xinghan glanced at everyone present. Everyone, I didn't bully him. With that, he looked at Yi Xian. Let's begin. Yi Xian opened his palm, and the cyan profound sword appeared in his hand. He looked at Wan Xinghan. I'm going to attack. A wisp of killing intent flashed in Wan Xinghan's eyes. Come. He had already planned that as long as Yi Xian attacked, he would directly kill Yi Xian in one strike. He had been very unhappy with this flashy fellow in front of him for a very long time. Yi Xian said in a low voice, Elder Wan, this sword of mine is very powerful. You must be careful. Wan Xinghan said angrily, Why do you have so much nonsense? At this moment, Wan Xinghan's voice stopped abruptly because a sword had pierced through his head. Everyone was stunned. What's going on? In next to no time, they looked at Yi Xian's right hand. At this moment, the sword in his right hand had vanished. Yi Xian had killed it. Everyone in the surroundings was petrified when they witnessed this scene. This young man instantly killed Wan Xinghan? Wan Xinghan was stunned as well. Because he hadn't even been able to react before a sword had pierced through his head. What's going on? Suddenly, Lian Yun stood up slowly and she gazed at Yi Xian, the heartless realm. Her voice was trembling slightly. The heartless realm. As soon as these words were spoken, everyone here was petrified on the spot. The heartless realm? All of them gazed at Yi Xian. This young man is at the heartless realm? At this moment, they seemed as if they'd been struck by lightning, and their minds were blank. At this moment, The experts of Tao Spirit Palace had astounded expressions on their faces as well. The Heartless Realm. Elder Yi is actually an Heartless Realm expert? Meanwhile, An Lianyun suddenly said, "You're at the Heartless Realm, right?" Yi Xian gazed at An Lianyun and smiled, "Yes. The Heartless Realm." The air here suddenly froze when they heard Yi Xian admit it. An Heartless Realm expert. That's a top existence in another world. Who is this Yi Xian? When did another Heartless Realm expert appear in another world? Moreover, he's so young. Everyone's minds were filled with questions. Meanwhile, Wan Xinghan's voice suddenly trembled. You're at the Heartless Realm, then why did you ask me to lower my cultivation? You really aren't human. As soon as he finished speaking, he vanished completely. He was instantly wiped out. Everyone here had extremely strange expressions on their faces. This fellow is at the Heartless Realm, yet he asked a half-step Heartless Realm expert to lower his cultivation. He really isn't human at all. Yi Xian opened his palm, and the green profound sword returned to his grasp. He gazed at the experts of the Myriad Tao Palace, and their expressions changed drastically. Yi Xian smiled, "All of you saw it? It was your elder one who challenged me. Moreover, he said that the Myriad Tao sect can't take revenge. Are all of you alright with that?" The experts of the Myriad Tao sect didn't dare to speak. This was an Heartless Realm expert and he wasn't someone they could resist. Yi Xian smiled, "Since there's no problem, then continue recruiting." After he finished speaking, he waved his sleeve and the space in the distance split open. A moment later, another genius walked out. Yi Xian looked at Li Jing, and Li Jing quickly went over to recruit more geniuses. The expressions of the experts of the Myriad Tao Palace were extremely unsightly. They didn't dare to say anything and they didn't dare to recruit more geniuses. In the distance, Uncle An said solemnly, "This youth isn't bad. Lianyun, you have to befriend him." And Lianyun turned to look at Uncle An. It didn't take long for the Tao Spirit Palace to recruit all the remaining geniuses. Li Jing and the others were beaming with joy. Moreover, they felt even more respect for Yi Xian. Yi Xian looked at An Lianyun and smiled, "Lianyun, the recruitment is over. I'll pay you a visit another day." And Lianyun nodded slightly. Okay. Yi Xian smiled and was about to leave with the experts of the Tao Spirit Palace. However, at this moment, an invisible pressure suddenly appeared in the sky. The next moment, the sky split open and a middle-aged man walked out. The expressions of the experts of the Myriad Tao sect relaxed when they saw this person. The person before them was the sect master of the Myriad Tao sect, Wan Daoming. With Wan Daoming's appearance, the atmosphere became tense once more. Next to him, Uncle An glanced at Yi Xian. Then he said, "This is getting complicated." And Lianyun looked at Yi Xian and didn't speak. After Wan Daoming appeared, his gaze fell on Yi Xian. "I didn't expect another Heartless Realm expert to appear in the Tao Spirit Palace." Beside Yi Xian, Li Jing said, "The Myriad Tao sect master Wan Daoming." Yi Xian nodded slightly. He looked at Wan Daoming and smiled. "Sect Master Wan, all of this is the will of my big sister Dao Ling. If Sect Master Wan is dissatisfied, you can go find my big sister Dao Ling. You coming to me is a bit like bullying the weak." "Everyone," Wan Daoming looked at Yi Xian. "You killed the head elder of my Myriad Tao sect. Isn't that bullying the weak?" Yi Xian smiled and said, "He was the one who challenged me first. It was his own idea to lower himself to the heartless state. I never said that I wanted to fight him one-on-one. He was the one who kept looking for me to fight one-on-one. Everyone can testify to that." "Everyone? Too shameless." Someone spoke abruptly in the surroundings. "P.S. Ask for a ticket. Give me one." Chapter 1999. How shameless. Needless to say, everyone here was shocked. This is an inaction realm expert? How could he be so shameless? Wan Daoming gazed at Yi Xian and was speechless. How did this fellow attain the inaction realm? Why doesn't he have the demeanor of an inaction realm expert at all? At this moment, Yi Xian left with the others. Wan Daoming suddenly said, "Elder Yi." Yi Xian stopped moving and turned around to look at Wan Daoming. Wan Daoming smiled, "How about we spar?" A spar. The expressions of the experts from the 10,000 Tao sect and Dao Ling Palace changed drastically. After all, while there had always been friction between the three great powers, it hadn't risen to the point where inaction realm experts would fight. Yet now Wan Daoming had challenged Yi Xian. This meant that they might fight to the death. Everyone looked at Yi Xian. Would Yi Xian accept it? Under everyone's gaze, Yi Xian smiled and said, "Then let's have a spar." Actually, he wanted to witness the combat strength of an inaction realm expert after he attained the inaction realm. Wan Daoming nodded slightly, opened his palm and then swept it lightly. In an instant, the space before him and Yi Xian started to change, and it didn't take long for both Yi Xian and Wan Daoming to enter a mysterious expanse of space. Both of them were at the inaction realm, so if they fought in another world, it would collapse. Wan Daoming gazed at Yi Xian. I haven't seen an inaction realm swordsman. As soon as he finished speaking, he opened his right hand. In the next moment, his right hand started burning, and it instantly transformed into a flaming arm. In the distance, Yi Xian opened his palm, and the green profound sword appeared in his grasp. A moment later, the sword suddenly vanished. A ray of sword energy instantly slashed down towards Wan Daoming. Wan Daoming raised his arm to block it. Bang! A ray of sword energy and flames erupted at the same time. A moment later, a fist smashed down towards the center of Yi Xian's forehead, and its powerful force shattered the space around Yi Xian. At this moment, Yi Xian's body became illusory. Boom! This punch missed, and Yi Xian himself had already retreated thousands of feet away. Wan Daoming raised his head to look at Yi Xian. Just as he raised his head, a sword light suddenly slashed down. Wan Daoming narrowed his eyes and raised his hand to block. Bang! Wan Daoming was pushed back thousands of feet by this sword, but before he could stop, another sword light slashed down. A strand of a cold light flashed in Wan Daoming's eyes. His right hand suddenly grabbed forward, and this grab directly grabbed onto Yi Xian's green profound sword. But in the next moment his expression instantly changed and he hurriedly let go. But it was still a bit too late and half of his palm was directly sliced off. Meanwhile, the azure sword had returned to Yi Xian's hand. Wan Daoming looked at the green profound sword in Yi Xian's hand. Good sword. Yi Xian smiled and said, your flame is also not bad. Earlier, the green profound sword had slashed the flame numerous times in succession, but the flame had only dimmed slightly, and its intelligence hadn't been destroyed by the green profound sword. Wan Daoming glanced at Yi Xian. Take another punch of mine. As soon as he finished speaking, he suddenly took a step forward. In the next moment he smashed his fist towards Yi Xian from afar. Bang! As he punched out, the flames on his arm suddenly transformed into a fist mark that shot out. Wherever the flaming fist mark passed, spacetime collapsed inch by inch. In the distance, Yi Xian's expression was calm. He issued a command in his heart, and the green profound sword transformed into a sword shield that blocked in front of him. Meanwhile, the flaming fist smashed down. Bang! Under the gazes of everyone, the sword shield forcefully blocked the flaming fist. However, the space around Yi Xian and the sword shield started to gradually vanish and be obliterated at this moment. Right? Wan Daoming took a deep glance at the sword shield in front of Yi Xian. He'd never imagined that this sword could actually take form. Most importantly, this sword shield was actually so strong. Abnormal. Wan Daoming opened his palm, and the flame returned to his hand once more. However, at this moment, the flame had dimmed a little. Yi Xian's sword was able to injure the spirit of his flame. In the distance, Yi Xian suddenly laughed. Come, take this. As soon as he finished speaking, he suddenly vanished on the spot. In the next moment, he appeared directly above Wan Daoming's head, and then he suddenly drew his sword and slashed. Drawing the sword to determine life and death. Drawing the sword with all his strength to determine life and death. At this moment, even he himself didn't know how many times he'd overlapped. At the instant that Yi Xian drew his sword, the space where he and Wan Daoming were directly turned pitch black. In the next moment, that space boiled, and strands of powerful energy continuously spread in all directions. The expressions of Li Jing and the others changed greatly, and they all retreated explosively. And Lian Yun stared fixedly at the pitch-black space, and no one knew what she was thinking. After a long time, Yi Xian and Wan Daoming appeared before everyone. At this moment, one of Wan Daoming's arms was gone. Not only that, but his entire body was covered in sword wounds. The flame in his hand was only a small flame left, and it was on the verge of death. However, Yi Xian was completely fine. Had Wan Daoming lost? Everyone looked at Wan Daoming. Wan Daoming said softly, "This sword of yours is amazing." The implication was that he wasn't willing to accept his defeat. Yi Xian smiled and said, "Sect Master Wan, let's end today's spar here." In truth, he only had the upper hand earlier. If he wanted to kill Wan Daoming, he would have to fuse with the green profound sword and reach the state of one with the sword. Only then would he have a chance to kill Wan Daoming. That was his trump card, and he wouldn't expose it if he could. Wan Daoming looked at Yi Xian. The Tao Spirit Palace is filled with talents. With that, he disappeared with the powerful cultivators of the 10,000 Dao sect. Yi Xian looked at Lianyun in the distance. Miss Lianyun will meet again. And Lianyun nodded slightly. I'll visit another day. Yi Xian smiled and said, anytime. With that, he disappeared with the powerful cultivators of the Dao Spirit Palace. After Yi Xian and the others had left, Uncle Lin, who was standing next to Lianyun, said softly, I didn't expect another super strong person to appear in the Daoling Palace. And he's a sword cultivator. A swordsman. There was only one swordsman in the boundless realm, and that was Yi Xian. In truth, Lianyun was the most likely to become the first boundless swordsman because the entire Fang Xiyuan sect was doing its best to nurture her. To nurture and boundless realm cultivator required the entire sect's strength. In truth, they were all curious about why an boundless swordsman had suddenly appeared in the Dao Spirit Palace. At this moment, Lianyun suddenly said, let's go. With that, she turned around and left. Soon, the powerful cultivators of the Fang Xiyuan sect also left. After Yi Xian returned to the Dao Spirit Palace, the attitude of the people of the Dao Spirit sect towards him instantly changed. Boundless realm. That was in existence on the same level as Palace Master Ah Ling. After Yi Xian returned to the Dao Spirit Palace, he went straight to his small hall and entered Xiaota. At this moment, Yi Xian's eyes shone with excitement. He had gained a lot from the battle with Wan Daoming just now. He now had a clear understanding of his own combat power. Not only that, but he also understood the combat power of an boundless realm cultivator. In the following time, Yi Xian began to cultivate. The battle with Wan Daoming gave him a lot of enlightenment. At the same time, he also realized that he had many shortcomings. These shortcomings had to be changed. Yi Xian did not know that because of his battle with Wan Daoming, the entire alternate world was in turmoil. A new boundless realm cultivator. And a swordsman. Somewhere in the clouds. An old man suddenly appeared in the clouds. As soon as the old man appeared, a woman in a red dress came not far in front of him. The woman in the red dress looked at the old man. Moku, did you investigate that person's background? Moku shook his head. I only know that he came from below. The woman in the red dress frowned. Moku glanced at the woman in the red dress. Hong Lian, are you worried that he has something to do with the mysterious woman who attacked back then? The woman called Hong Lian nodded. That's possible. Moku frowned slightly. What do you mean? Hong Lian said, he is a swordsman and the senior who attacked back then was also a swordsman. Most importantly, he had come from the bottom. Why was Chidi killed back then? It was because one of his avatars went to the lower realm. If I'm not wrong, his avatars offended that big shot in the lower realm, so he was killed by that big shot. Moku said, you mean that Yi Xian is that senior's man? Hong Lian nodded, yes. Moku remained silent and didn't speak again. Hong Lian continued, the reason this person was able to defeat Wan Daoming was because of the sword in his hand. The sword in his hand can break Wan Daoming's spirit fire. Moku's eyes narrowed, it can break it? Hong Lian nodded, rather than saying that Wan Daoming lost to him, it would be better to say that he lost to the sword in his hand. That is a super divine artifact. Moku softly said, so you're saying that this guy is not only an endless swordsman, but also a super second generation? Hong Lian nodded. Moku silently pondered for a moment and softly said, I understand. Hong Lian continued, that day, Dao Ling already knew who killed Qi Di. With that she shook her head, that woman is actually related to Yi Xian. Her fate might change because of this. Moku suddenly said, do you think the 10,000 Dao sect will give up? Hong Lian smiled, after suffering such a big loss, how could they give up? With that she looked at Moku, you mean that when the 10,000 Dao sect targets him, we will lend a hand and befriend him? Moku smiled but didn't speak. Hong Lian gave him a thumbs up. What an old fox. Moku softly said, it depends on whether or not the 10,000 Dao sect will cooperate. Hong Lian smiled, they will cooperate? Because as far as I know, Ah Muge and Fan Tian have already headed to the 10,000 Dao sect. Moku frowned, Fan Tian also went? Hong Lian nodded. Moku silently pondered for a moment before saying, let's take a gamble. Anyway, we have lived enough. Take a gamble. Yi Xian was still cultivating in the small tower. At that moment Yi Xian seemed to have sensed something. The next moment he disappeared from where he was. When he reappeared he was already in front of Xu Wang. At that moment Xu Wang slowly got to her feet. The moment she got to her feet, the space and time around them started boiling. Endless realm. Xu Wang looked at Yi Xian. I have reached endless realm. Yi Xian's mouth curved up. Good news. You're tuning in to the Han Li's Wuxia Chronicles YouTube channel. We're so grateful for your support, and don't forget to subscribe to join us on this incredible journey through captivating stories. Your generosity through donations truly makes a world of difference, as it's the primary source of revenue that allows me to expand and enhance this channel for you. Thank you from the bottom of my heart for being a part of this adventure.